circus trying to find the south. But if you're looking for the truth, like I find it out. NASA can't go to space, so we hit the roof. Get it, hit the roof. And it all came to light with 200 proofs. Now I'm just really sick of people lying to me. So when I tell the truth, don't come crying to me. Pick up the phone, get on the line with me. Line with me. Who you gon' call? Who you gon' call?
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, Why Flat Earthers Are Dead Right. I am your host, Bob Xanadude60, and we're back with another great show for you today. Hopefully we're going to go through some stuff today, especially a very popular video that has come out that has something like 1.2 million views on it, and titled, ironically, Why Flat Earthers Are Dead Wrong. This is one of those stupid hit pieces that completely takes everything out of context, tries to apply the typical ball earth arguments to a flat earth model, and completely obfuscates, just about all of the rest of it. So we figured we would go through it as well as, quite a few other things that have been in the news this week. Pretty crazy week for sure. So before we get to that, let me go ahead and introduce the panel today. We have a very large panel today. First up, we have Jaron from Jaronism. How are you doing today, Jaron?
Doing pretty good, Bob. Thanks. Glad everybody's here. Thank you for tuning in, and it looks like a full panel. I'm excited about the show. So let's get rolling.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. We will do that. All right. So next up from Down Under, we have Iru Landucci. Hey, Iru, how you doing, man?
Hello, Bob. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. And I really like the introduction from Jaron, so I'm gonna copy and paste and put that enthusiasm in the word. So keep rolling.
There you go.
Not like the earth. Not like the earth.
Not
keep rolling like the sun. Keep rolling like the moon, like the stars. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of rolling.
All right, fair enough. All right, sounds good. So next up, we have our own Ben, Taboo Conspiracy. Ben, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing much better. I've been sick for a few days. I think maybe the coronavirus got to me or something like that. But I'm feeling a lot better today. And but if I start coughing and all that, please understand that's what's going on. But glad to be a part of the show.
Understood. That was funny because over the past 2 weeks, I've had two specific days where I woke up in the morning and I swear I felt like I was run over by a truck or somebody just beat me with a baseball bat. And it only I didn't have any other symptoms other than I was just unbelievably sore, and it only lasted for the day. So there's just weird stuff going around, but I don't think it's anything quite as deadly as the alleged coronavirus,
All right.
Yep, for sure. Okay. All right. And next up, we have our newest Globebuster, Mr. Austin Whitsitt. How you doing today, Austin?
Hey, doing good. Looks like a great show lined up, so I'm glad to be here, man.
Awesome. Yep. And you're fresh off your debate with MC Cartoon, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Boy, did he make some ridiculous assertions.
McToon, not MC.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, McToon, McCartoon.
McChanges tune.
Like McDonald or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And we also have with us, the doctor is in, Dr. Rodrigo Ferrari Nunez. How you doing today, Rodrigo?
Hey, Bob. How's it going? How's everyone? Yeah, I'm good. It's here at 9 p.m. and Sunday, taking it easy and doing some work. So looking forward to tonight's show. Seems to be pretty exciting. So see what we get to with our hands on tonight. Yeah?
Sounds good. All right. And last but certainly not least, we have our guest from the official Flat Earth and Globe discussion group. Or I may have that wrong the way I do it. I should know it, because I'm a moderator. But we have the founder of that group with us today, Nathan Thompson. How are you doing today, Nathan?
I'm excellent out here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'll be in San Antonio, Texas later next week. We'll talk more about that later. But you guys are all legends. I'm a big fan of the show. I actually support Jaron on Patreon. So if you guys are fans of the show, support what you like or it goes away. I always say sharing is caring. If you don't share, you just don't care. So happy to be here with all you guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, Nathan. Well, we're certainly glad to have you because this is the first time that you have been here on Globebusters. I know you've been on once or maybe twice. I don't know with Jaron. But yeah, this is the first time you've been here, and you know I've known you for so long. I almost feel bad because of that. Nathan was actually here at our house for almost, what was it, like almost a month back in May, wasn't it, Nathan?
Yeah, you pretty much adopted me. I had chores and everything. It was great. I loved being there. I've been there a couple times, and so I just love you guys. You guys are like family. I really support what you guys do. Bob, you're honestly one of the most intelligent flat earthers I've met, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've met more flat earthers than anyone in the history of flat earth. So you're doing a great job. All you guys are all spectacular.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. And yeah, can't wait to see you again because, as you know, we are planning on migrating that way. And who knows, we may even wind up in Greenville. Wouldn't that be awesome? And we get all the flat earthers from Colorado migrating to the East Coast. Pretty bizarre. So, all right, guys. So we have a few things that I want to cover today. And what you've been seeing that has been streaming in the background was the Grotto 1 Rock Lake Horizon curve tests. And of course, Taboo Conspiracy kind of did a highlight video on this. What was it, last week, Ben, or something like that? And Ben and I have, Ben and I have both been, big followers of Grotto 1, and this guy is amazing. Like I said, he is kind of a tinkerer. He rebuilds engines, and he's very mechanically inclined. And he kind of got bitten by the flat Earth bug, a couple years ago actually, and started out with a frozen lake test like 2 or 3 years ago. And I've kind of told that story before about how he got kind of chastised for not leveling his laser. But this time, he decided to go out and absolutely do a first-class job. He went out, I believe it's the same lake, if I'm not mistaken, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the same lake that he went to. And this time he put different color lights out along the path. And the amazing thing about it is you can see these lights absolutely straight across from each other, level across, and even there is one anomaly to it. That is this little red light that's closest to the white light, and it appears to be a little bit lower than the rest, which is interesting because it happens to be the closest one, and you would think it would be the opposite way around. But he even explains that and gives a beautiful demonstration for it. So what did you think of this video, Ben?
No, it's just another fantastic little test that he does. I'm really fond of Grotto 1 and all the work that he goes in and doing this, of going into painstaking detail to show, just cover all the bases. And in this one, he demonstrates again, prospectively, that the closer light should be a little bit lower. So, I mean, that's just how the flat Earth works.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is really good at what he does. So if you guys haven't seen it, this will be in the show notes after the show. Grotto 1, Rock Lake Horizon Curve Test Part 2. And there are several, thank you. There are several other parts to this that he, extensively documented and just really did a fabulous job. So gotta love it. Oh, my goodness. Okay. And Cammie just pointed out to me, apparently we just got a beautiful super chat from Lumberjack. Thank you so much for that, Lumberjack. He says, shout out to the Globebusters crew, driving so can't chat, but my ears are on. Have a great show. Thank you very much, Lumberjack. You've been really fantastic in the community and very supportive too. I think it was Lumberjack that was really showing you some love, wasn't he, Austin?
Yeah, man, for sure. A couple times.
Oh, and if you haven't met him, he's just great to hang out with. He was down there at Salton Sea, and of course, I hung out with him at the conference, and he's just a great guy. So shout out to Lumberjack Brooke for sure.
Most definitely.
Awesome. All right. So let's get past that, and let's go to some other mentions that I wanted to kind of give some mentions to. You guys all know about David Weiss's interview with Ruth, of course, and Ruth was taught in school back in probably around 1910, somewhere. Or no, she said she was born in
18 or 16.
1916 or 1912?
16. She was born in 16, so she probably was going to school in the early 20s.
No, it had to be 18 because she's 102. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
All right, yeah. I applaud that math. Okay. Anyway, so somewhere around the 1920s, she was taught that, of course, the Earth was flat. And so I was looking through some interesting stuff, and there's a YouTuber by the name of Alyssa Hawk who found another YouTuber by the name of Dean Hawk, and they're no relation. She has an E at the end of her name. But Dean Hawk went to his local library, and this is something everybody can do, by the way. Either go to your local library or your local newspaper and look through what they call the morgue, the newspaper morgue, and you can look up old newspaper articles. And I think they actually have it so you can do this online now, I'm pretty sure. But it's interesting because Dean Hawk actually was able to come up with over 100 articles in and around the turn of the century, 1900 to 1920, etc. They were all talking about that the Earth was still flat and that it was basically, a sin almost to even, talk about it being a ball Earth. So the point is, and this series, by the way, by Alyssa, is 4 parts. I'm only showing the number 1 here. I will have the link to all 4 of them on here. But it's 4 parts, and she highlights several of the articles that Dean Hawk gathered up, and it's absolutely amazing. It is everywhere. So the notion that this is something that's been around for thousands of years is another huge lie, because we can prove it in old newspaper clips that the flat Earth was very much alive at the turn of the century. And, this is actually a brand new, conspiracy, essentially. I would say even the whole Columbus thing 500 years ago was a load of crap, So what do you guys think?
Well, Bob, if someone believes in a creation that does not exist, then they ipso facto believe in a creator that doesn't exist. So it is false God worship. If you're a Christian, I could see how they could spin this to say it's a sin to preach the heliocentric model.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Nathan. So, yeah, there you have it. And like I said, it's amazing how many of these articles are out there. And I'm just amazed. But again, not amazed.
It's interesting because I've seen the globes from the 15th, 16th century, the balls. Like there's museums of science, like in Italy, that I went once in Florence, for instance. There's one. You can probably find it online as well. And you find so many balls there, so many globes that were made around 15, 1600s and so on. But obviously, because that was apparently was a new idea, then it had to be pushed. And there was obviously resistance that lasted for a long time. And then somehow it's being squashed, probably with the Depression in the United States, because then you have a kind of a reset through economic meltdown. And then you can restart the educational system with whatever you want in it instead of the actual discussion. But yeah, we know the Jesuits were pushing it from before, right, Iro? When they started with the ball.
Yeah. But this kind of news here in when you start looking into the educational system, you become aware really soon that like you said, Rodrigo, they are pushing this kind of propaganda in the education system. And they even I remember an article from Robert Bassano, and I presented in some of my conference that all these tests that the institutions, the official institutions do in terms of at what age you can change the opinion of a child to start believing in the heliocentric model. And they compare people from Greeks, Greek student from 6 years old to 12 years old with American student and how they perceive the world. Of course, all the child talks about perceiving the world as a stationary flat plane where the cycles of the day and night is carried by the movement of the moon and the sun, and gravity is not a force, all these kind of things. And they are testing that, and they change the educational system. For example, when I was young, my first contact with the heliocentric model was around 10 years old, something like that, 9 years old. And now, when you are in the kindergarten, you are presented with all these balls. You don't know even how is 10 centimeters, and they presented all these light years and the heliocentric model from the roots. And you are the child, you have maybe 5 years old, 4 years old. You turn on the television, you have all these propaganda, spread by Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, Discovery Kids. All the time the logo is spherical Earth, and of course that also translate to adult people. It's the same case, but they know that the best thing that they can do is brainwash from the childhood, because if not, you are going to start. There is and let me close with this. And I presented last week in my Spanish channel. But there is this TV series called Ascension, when then present they create like a flat world with a dome enclosure by the dome, and they using that as an experiment to control people, blah blah blah. And one of the main character said to other characters, said, when the people start getting doubt about the environment where they live, and he said with more beautiful words than me, the experiments start fail. And that is what happened for me with the flat earther. We start questioning the environment, the world as is presented, and the experiment is start failing, at least with us, right? And the experiment is called heliocentric.
Yeah, exactly. But what they do then, even though it fails, they prop it up. They use their brainwashing tools. We had the introduction of television and movies and all this stuff, and that's how they actually prop this up. And it is amazing how easily that people can be swayed to just walk away from their God-given intuitions and feelings. And that's how they reinforce it. And then ultimately they start introducing, when it gets to a certain point, then it's just not cool to be against that particular model anymore. So then you start adding the element of shame in, and on and on and on and on. And before you know it, here we are in 2020. And a good percentage of the world, the majority of the world obviously believes that we're on a spinning ball, flying through outer space. Crazy.
And yeah, the article that Iro just mentioned is from Stella Wozniacki and William Brewer. I think that's one you're talking about, right, Iro? Mental models. Study of conceptual change in childhood.
Exactly, and it was presented in the University of Illinois.
Yes, no, the scholars from the University of Illinois, both of them, yes. And
2006, 2007 was one of the last surveys.
Yes, and they started in 1992 doing this, and exactly what you're saying. They say here, when they start synthesizing the models that the children generate as a solution to the problems arising from the inconsistency between the initial model of a flat Earth and the culturally accepted scientific model of a spherical Earth, then throughout these they understand that it has to be socially acceptable, the ball. That's why they turn to the ball. When it's essentially that kind of bullying, or else, like if you don't accept the ball, you're crazy. And it's typical of all these children's stories like Santa Claus and now of course NASA and the space mythology and everything. But yeah, it's interesting how those things are out there for a while. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
If I could add to that, you got to look at, why is there such an effort to bully and to crush the discussion of a flat Earth? And we look back at Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I've been reading Edward Hendry's book lately, the sphere of influence, and he talks about this. You can think the craziest things you want. Go ahead and think that. But if you try to influence others, and you're actually being irresponsible, and you are destabilizing the foundations of an informed democracy.
Civilization, he
says. Tyson was really concerned of his handlers, you know. So he said destabilizing the foundations of an informed democracy. That's what they're worried about. Is that if everyone figures out we're not on a ball, then world governments would.
Yeah, it's like the you know, I know you, Nathan, you are a Christian, and this is you can take this as a symbology of the second coming, because I mean this information not it's like a rebirth of generation or the human generation of the human knowledge or whatever you want to call it. I mean this information you can take it like a new birth, or at least for me that is what is represent. It doesn't matter the religion that you maybe follow, but I know that a lot of religion talks all the time like the second coming, or like an avatar or person that is going to came to, you know, bring new awareness. But I like to see also in terms of the information that we are receiving from the ether. That is my opinion, but yeah.
All right. Beautiful. Okay. So yeah, it's, you know, obviously, you know, bringing this back around full circle, obviously this whole thing is a very recent lie, and it's amazing to watch the methodology that they have used to propagate it. It's absolutely astounding. Something that literally has only been around for maybe 100 years at best, that they have, you know, convinced people that not only is it real, but it went back 500 years initially. We were all taught, you know, that was the whole reason for Columbus to be doing this. And then, of course, going back all the way back now, they're saying Eratosthenes, and we even had some guy last week that said, oh, yeah, they knew 4,000 years ago. But, you know, whatever.
It's like you said, I mean, using the TV, which is their number one brainwashing tool, and that just came around within 100 years. And with a TV and a globe in every scene, and then, you know, a globe in every classroom, it's just so easy to convince children of anything. I mean, you could put a pyramid in every classroom and put a map on it, and as long as you put that pyramid in some TV programs and in some cartoons and maybe on Sesame Street, we would have, you know, 3, 4, 5-year-olds coming out thinking we lived on a pyramid. It's really that easy.
Yeah, and in fact, when you go to the history, and I presented this also in some of my conference, the first equipment that we can be considered as a television was a projector, image projector. It came from the Jesuit order, and Athanasius Kirchner was the inventor, and also was the guy who trying to measure if we build, and this is official articles, if we build the Tower of Babel, we are going to inclinate or change the inclination of the angle of the spherical Earth. So we can have troubles with that. So better don't build it. You know, things like that. And this guy was also presented as the Codice Voronoi, and he makes all kind of experiments with magnets and related with health. And, you know, it's a long list of things that, you know, this order are you know, developed. But the first projector, the first television, quote unquote, was the Magic Lantern. And when you go to the biography of this character called Athanasius Kirchner, they're going to talk you or telling you about the Magic Lantern, and the first image that they present to the people was like a demon projected on the wall, because that is what you can interpret as brainwashing. You know, the church use all these kind of symbology or symbolics or symbols with demons to control via fear to the public, to the people. And, you know, 300-400 years later, it's the same thing. They control us with an asteroid going to hit the Earth, and we are going to end like the dinosaurs, and, you know, the solar storm we can have on the Earth and blow away all this energy, or, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it's the same thing, but they use that and they created that. And the US patent for the television or the monitor is a device for manipulate and control the electromagnetic fields of the body.
Right, and like
So-
y'all said, they have to just prevent you and bully you from even having the conversation, because Flat Earth has all the observation on their side, and then their wizards step in the form of math magicians and cast their spells of formulas, and everyone falls for
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah.
And what Bob just mentioned, the Greeks, right? When they talk about the Greeks in the past and how they knew of the sphericity of the ball, and the first Pythagoras, and he was the first one who came up with it, and everybody supposedly agree with it. This whole narrative makes no sense once you start reading ancient literature. Once you start reading actual Greeks, Hesiod, for instance, who's around the time of the mythical Pythagoras, because he doesn't really exist. We only know about him from people who wrote about him. We don't have any of his own writings. Hesiod, his writings, whatever survives, doesn't talk about a spinning ball Earth at all. It's completely different. It's very close to biblical cosmology, and it's definitely a plane. So what Greeks are they talking about? So for me, that's a big red flag when somebody starts speaking about the Greeks. So they believed it, and without any sort of backing up with actual information from a source, which is what you see with Eratosthenes' story a lot. And that one, even Neil deGrasse Tyson accepts that works on a flat model anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, that's just one of the things that's kind of, I think, is important to note. That when you start reading this stuff, you're going to see even in Plato, another Greek, when you read Timaeus, for instance, there's different cosmologies in there, and they're complicated. That they have nothing to do with the ball Earth. So whatever, it takes me off.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, I noticed you unmuted a minute ago. Did you have something to add to that?
No, sorry. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. No problem. I'm
Hey,
just trying
real quick, Bob. There's an article. There's an article I did real quick. Want to add one thing called CIA and the Media from Rolling Stone, 1977, and it talks about how a former CIA intelligence officer went to the Senate Committee of Members and stated that the low-end estimate was that there were 400 journalists who were CIA shills working as journalists, including all areas of news reporting, top management, to reporters, editors, correspondents, photographers. They also had influence into book publishers, trade publications, and newsletters. So that's how they perpetuate it, not just with the schools, with the media.
Right. And those are actually true shills, not like the people who want to call some flat earther shills. When you're talking about people in the CIA directing people's opinions through mass media, whether it's newspaper, radio, these are the mass ways to get people to all see things whatever direction you want them to see it in. And, you may think, oh, well, did YouTube even the field by allowing people like us to have shows? Well, no, they just suppress the information. They don't allow it to be shared. They don't allow, they basically censor this kind of information. And so, no, those who have the most money, those who are part of the CIA, those who, work directly for the higher ups, those are the ones who get to promote their message across the world. So it shouldn't be a surprise to us that that's the message that most people believe and will fight for. Anytime something comes up that's against your what you were taught, against your predominant opinion at the time, you're going to fight. And that's what we get daily, is these people just fighting us. Why? Well, simply because they were taught something different.
Right, and Operation Mockingbird is declassified and admits that the CIA has interest in controlling the media.
Yeah, and if you just go a little back in time, you have the Operation Paperclip, that all the majority of the people related just with NASA, but not, they forget the connection with the Nazis, with the CIA and the foundation of the CIA. And then if you go a little back, the foundation from the Nazi party, from Jesuit and all that kind of thing. So everything, when they say all the path conduct to Rome, for me, we need to change Rome to Jesuit, and you have it.
Yeah, that pretty much ties it all together. That's for sure. So yeah, I found that that article, Nathan, and the actual original one as well. So interesting. And the CIA, of course, who was it? William somebody is the guy that said, when the American people believe everything that we have put out, our disinformation campaign will be complete, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, I said when everything they believe is a lie, then our information campaign will be complete. And the only reason this subversion is working is because most people believe the news is unbiased. If they started to question the news and test what they're saying themselves, then they would see that the news is not to inform people, it's to control the masses.
Yes. Yeah, his name was William Casey. And it's not even a disputed claim. There's people who were there when he made it who said, no, absolutely, that's what he said. And he was the director of the CIA from somewhere in the 80s. I don't remember the exact years.
Yeah.
What about that guy that you're talking about just recently, Jaron, the one that you found out he worked in Paramount Studios?
This
I
guy.
put a
This
link.
guy.
Oh,
This
thank
guy.
you. Yeah, it's funny. Actually, Eddie Bravo is the one who texted me that. He goes, "Did you know this?" And of course, I looked at him like, I didn't know that. I knew who T. Keith Glennon was. I knew that he was the first administrator of NASA, but I had no idea that during his career he was the studio manager of Paramount Pictures and Samuel Golden Studios, and that's just hilarious. And then also, I think a little bit further down, it says something else I thought was funny. He was director of the U.S. Navy's underwater sound laboratories.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just
Seriously, how would that help you on
Underwater
your resume?
studio. Yeah, can go underwater, can do studio work, and does some electrical engineering. Perfect for the NASA job, faking space.
And the Paramount picture represent the fallen angels, and something that for me, it was really when I started studying the flat Earth is how they create this kind of shielding from themselves, because you are going to, if you go out there into the YouTube of the conspiracy information, all the people talks about Zionists, all the people talks about occultists, Satanists, Luciferians, blah 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 blah. Nobody ever mentioned Jesuits. Nobody. For the regular public, the Jesuits are like the most beautiful and an amazing organization that help people to rise up from the poverty, and we create the academies and universities to bring knowledge to the people, and they did it. I mean, you can apply this the same phrase that you tell, our campaign of disinformation is going to be complete with anybody out there, don't believe that is true. Sorry for my
it's
lack
the
of
film.
English,
The
but
film with Robert De Niro, right?
But the same thing is applied to the Jesuit order, because nobody believes in the Jesuit order. Nobody even take into consideration in the daily basis. You're gonna, turn on the television and you're gonna have journalists discussing and talking about the racism between the Jew people with that or the other or the whatever. Nobody mentions the Jesuit in that category, in terms of how the people they killed all the Americans when they invaded in the 1492 to our days. I mean, nobody talks about them in any particular branch of or the science or the society, and that is something to it's an accomplishment for them. That is my point of view.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's simply incredible when you start looking into some of these guys, and I know Bob has it up on the screen now, but even if you look over who he was succeeded by, James Webb, who was named the head of NASA by JFK, right? So the funny thing about him is he's the head of NASA only through 1968, which is incredible. It's all through the Apollo era, except for the launches to the moon. Like, he carried it all the way up there and then says, nah, I quit. I don't want anything to do with this. And there's a lot of people. You can watch American Moon. It has a good little segment on it, maybe a 15-minute segment. But there's a lot of people with NASA who bailed out right as they got close to launching the moon landings. Why? Well, you can make up your own mind. I think I have my idea why.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And American Moon, the movie that Jaron was talking about. I was going to try and pull up a link for it really quick. It comes in many different languages. Here it is right here.
The luminosity.
I'll go ahead and throw this in the show notes, but this honestly is one of the best moon debunk movies I've ever seen. I mean, hands down. Not only does it debunk it, but it goes back and the debunkers of the debunkers, supposedly the people that are the pro moon landing, it goes through and, their debunks of, the debunkers debunks, and then it debunks them. It's crazy, but it's really, really a good movie. It's long. It's 3.5 hours long, but it is well worth every second of it.
Yeah, watching some pieces or something, but it destroys Mythbusters, as we've all said. We've kind of done that in a piece by piece basis, but they kind of accumulate it and just show that every time Mythbusters tries to prove something, it's hilarious. It's like trying to prove that the light on the moon, wasn't necessarily from a studio light. They go ahead and use a studio light in their thing. It's like, yay, way to go! You use a studio light, and
the T-shirt to make the reflector, right? To work as a reflector as well.
Yeah, there's just so many good points that they make, and then there's a great, the beginning of the movie does do a good job of kind of talking about the propaganda in a way that I don't think a lot of people have thought about. But you have to remember, from the time Kennedy made his proclamation that people were going to go to the moon, that this was forced down children's throats in school, right? Over and over again. We're in the space age now. Man will soon walk on the moon. And they go on and on and on. Well, if at any point anybody ever realized we can't go to the moon, they would have had to fake it, period. There's just no way you can push that over and over again through Disney, through Werner von Braun, through all these constant CBS and ABC reports on, man will soon be walking on what's next in the history of man. Man will soon be in the stars. You can't say all that and then go back and say, oh, sorry, we're not what we thought we were. We're not as, our ingenuity isn't as good as we thought. Our technology isn't as great as we said. They would have to lie to it. They would have to lie about it. And it certainly seems that they did. And I think the fact that they launched all these missions during one president's reign, and that was Nixon, who, say what you will about him, but
biggest crook ever.
Right. Certainly say that Nixon, and Nixon was put there, by Bush, Prescott. It just goes to show you that these guys were set in those positions, and then what comes out of it? Well, Texas gets all these space centers, and who was behind Texas? LBJ and Bush's. They all had these oil platforms and these things out of Texas, and Texas gets all this money. It just seems to be a story for the ages and one of deception. And if people can't see that, I'm just surprised. It's the whole thing with the same. We were talking about the CIA and what they've done with propaganda. The fact that people can see that and then still think, wow, it's not happening today, or still trust everything they've got to say is insane.
It's crazy, no? Yeah, and also just taking a cold look at that Kennedy speech. The things that he's saying is just it's totally off.
They had never sent a man to space when Kennedy made that proclamation. They'd never put a man in orbit, and he's saying, "We'll put man on the moon. We'll bring them back safely." Well,
no, he says with alloys never invented that it's going to sustain the highest temperatures that never been tested in a place that never been seen.
Right.
With no
unobtainium.
Unobtainium.
It's sad, and then you start to see why they had to go through with it, and you prop this guy up so big, and then for whatever reason you either take him out, whether you believe that story or not. In one way or another, it was a huge propaganda piece to push what they wanted to push. And it certainly seems like space and space travel, everything they get from Arthur C. Clarke and satellites, just
Jules Verne.
Yeah, Jules Verne. Right. It's just a story that they're telling. And again, when you have the TV, like we talked about earlier, that largest brainwashing tool, and you put these, and I've talked about it before, they would, buy TVs for classrooms so that they could put on these films with Bill Nye the Science Guy, put on these films with Werner von Braun standing with Roy Disney. So the great thing too about that T. Keith Glennon, I just wanted to say that Eddie Bravo sent me, and then he says, "This is huge. From day one, NASA was Nazi and Hollywood." And how can you define that? How can you deny that?
Of course. Yeah, Jack Parsons said, that's what he was doing. That's where we were. Him and Scientology. That's why it's so big in Hollywood, precisely because it was started there. It's part of the same mind control kind of program.
But
Space scam.
Eru knows well that all you need to do to get your rockets where you want them to go is prey upon. right? You're just
I'm typically if I understand what is a pound, I'm start laughing very very high. But I am not following you, Sharon. Sorry, man.
Right.
You must speak Spanish for that kind of thing.
Pray to Pan.
Pray to Pan.
Pan. Oh yeah, Pan, man. Yeah, Mr. Pan. Yeah, the God Pan. Thank you. You need to pray, Pan. Yes.
Right. Pray to him.
Wikipedia says that.
We'll
Yeah. It's official, man. It's official.
Yeah. Just don't blow yourself up.
One of the other
in the Antichrist, right? That's what Jack Clark.
Yes.
Girl trying bring in the
Telema religion, all that. But that's amazing because it's right there. It's in the Wikipedia official page.
Yeah.
They say, in fact, they'll tell you that Jack Parsons died performing a magical experiment in his basement. That the guy, he doesn't die because he get old or because he get killed or because he was in the launch pad and nobody warned him to before they press the button. No, he died performing a magical act in his house, and that is writing down in the official textbooks, and nobody cares.
Right.
Yep.
It's called the Babylon working. His whole devil thing that he was trying to bring on through these 6 magic rituals. Yes, Bob, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and one other thing that, it appears that their tactics haven't changed much. We were talking about they use certain proofs to try and debunk things like the lights, right? They'll say, well, this proves that it couldn't have been shot in a studio, right? And they're using the very thing that proves that it was. And of course, that's carried over today. And again, this is all CIA tactics where now we get ball earthers who will look at things like, the so-called black swan argument, right? And they'll look at it and say, absolutely excellent ball earth proof. It's like, are you kidding me? But that's what they do, and as I said last week, you say it with enough assertion and people are going to believe you.
Exactly.
They put the flag inside the vacuum chamber and they have somebody twist it and then they all celebrate when the flag keeps turning and then they say, come at us as soon as you have a flag turning without an astronaut near it. Well, what happens in that movie they show you from Apollo 14 where the astronauts get in the ship, they seal it all up, they're in the ship, and the flag continues to move for 15 minutes after they're in the ship. Now, of course, what did they come back and say? Oh, well, that's because of some gases that are being expelled out of the lunar lander, which doesn't even make sense in their vacuum environment. But they can just get away with saying whatever because the people who have been swindled will do anything to prove to themselves that they haven't been swindled, especially such a large swindle. And there you go on the screen now. I mean, I've talked about that a lot, the fall off of light, which can't happen if you just have an atmosphereless moon and you've got the sun glaring down on you. Everything would be lit equally. You wouldn't have dark spots away from the camera unless you had some sort of spotlight. And you can just look at the famous footage the famous photos of Buzz Aldrin standing on the moon. He's like standing in a spotlight with all dark moon around him. It just doesn't work on a atmosphereless moon. Is that a word? Atmosphereless? Atmosphereless. It's fun to say.
Void of atmosphere.
The same thing applies to the recent stuff. We're watching the Monica Koch and the guy, the Parmitano guy. They're coming out the Soyuz and the whole animation, and right away you can tell that the sun is behind the ship, but you can see everything in front of the ship. It's all fully illuminated with the sun behind it, right? Even now, and it's obviously totally fake. But it's the same kind of problems apply. Like no photographer, any of these guys who are looking into this, those Italian guys, the photographer, the professionals, if they look at any of this new stuff that's coming out now from the ISS, they will notice some of the same problems.
Yep. And also real quick shout out to FE News for the super chat, who says any scientific evidence that refraction can make a geometric horizon disappear and create a new non-geometric horizon. Well, I think the easy answer to that, FE News, is nope. And also I want to give a shout out to Hendrik Alerts, and I know I always butcher that probably, but thank you again, Hendrik, for being such a great supporter of Globebusters. We appreciate you, and you are awesome, sir. And then last but not least, we have a couple more actually. Andrew Witherite says, shout out to Nathan. Glad to see him on the show. So there you go, Nathan. And we're glad to have you on the show too, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. I was with Andrew about a week ago in Atlanta, and then we did another meetup in Columbia, South Carolina, and we'll be in San Antonio, Texas next week. I'll go over the details later at the close of the show. But if anybody needs info, email me, flatearthflyers@gmail.com. So thanks for the shout out, Andrew.
Beautiful. And we also have one from Commercial Sound and Video who says, now Neil says it will appear flat for everyone under 100,000 feet, so only science can see the curve. Whatever. Great panel today. Thanks. And thank you for that. And lastly, we have Rico Kohler versus the Martyrdom of Saint Me, who says, I made up a word to save ballers time with their excuses. Refravity. Refraction and gravity. That's a good one.
Yeah, and then you look at that video. I think you showed it earlier. I don't know if you were going to talk about it, but the one where Mark Sargent's talking to that guy. And, so funny, that guy's just, are you calling me a liar? I saw the curve from 60,000 feet. Well, no, Mark isn't calling you a liar, but certainly Neil deGrasse is. So, I mean,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, about Neil deGrasse saying that, and I think I made a pretty good case last week, talking about Jay Tolan's video. It's like, look, Neil deGrasse Tyson made his assertions that you could not possibly see the curve, from those altitudes. And, that is based on the ridiculous idea that you have to take the entire ball, the entire 8,000 mile diameter of the ball, in with respect to just the surface of the earth. That's ridiculous. You don't have to do that. And frankly, you should be able to see curvature quite easily, especially anything, 100 miles or, at the very least, I would say 100 miles. You should absolutely be able to see curvature, and especially from side to side, just basing it on the clouds reference to, the surface of the earth. So that
example you gave from Hawaii, right? The two islands?
Yeah, the Kahoolawe and Molokai, which are nearly 100 miles apart, and so there's at least a mile of curvature that should be, in between them, which means that you should have a high center point of somewhere around between 2,000 and 3,000 feet. My God, the islands themselves are not that high, and you can absolutely see those elevation differences on the islands themselves. So why wouldn't you be able to see it from the surface? It's like, come on, guys, you would be able to see the curvature. The only reason they're saying that, again, is they're misleading people, and they're saying, oh, no, you got to look at it in comparison to the other 8,000 miles. That's horse hockey. Just not true.
I just want to reiterate something that Jaron always says, is that they will always have a response. And we can debunk their response over and over again, but then they'll just move the goalposts and come up with a new little claim and then say with the same authority that if you don't, the flat earthers don't understand science, you're stupid, all that stuff. And they'll just keep moving it. And we can keep debunking it all the time. But somehow we have to stop that. We have to end that debate much quicker. I don't know how we do that, but I just think it's fascinating how they will always have a response. Doesn't matter how stupid it is, they will always have a response.
Right, and that's kind of why I've gone the direction of just having some conversations on my channel and not so much these videos. Because if you do a video, they'll just Simon Dan or somebody else will just come out and say, sit in their chair and look really authoritative and talk in a British accent and say science, 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 and idiot, idiot, idiot. And that's what a lot of people will buy. It doesn't matter what we say. Again, we see 50 miles, we see 100 miles. Well, actually, science says that with refraction, it's just they can say whatever, and it doesn't matter how many times you show them published papers that say that from the height of a commercial jet, it's impossible to decipher the horizon, which is our argument that the horizon is an apparent position. Their argument is that the horizon is supposed to be some spherical edge of the Earth. And again, once we show that black swan argument, whatever, that you can see past that horizon, then they have to make up something new. So it never jives, and yet people who want to believe it will take anything that's being said and just call it fact and move on. So I agree, Taboo. It's a tough position to be in. A much easier position is just to be in Neil deGrasse's position. Oh, I'm not going to debate these guys. I'm just going to stand here with all of science to back me.
Yeah,
sad.
Absolutely. Very sad. And also got another super chat from Cinnamon Bear who says, does anyone know what science says about how the star trails will make perfect circles, implying a full rotation? However, the sun never comes up during that period. Well, I think, Cinnamon Bear, the key to that question is in the question itself, implying a full rotation. Obviously, you can't see the full rotation because of the fact you do have daylight. So that would be my answer to that. I don't know if anybody else has any different take on it or not.
Well, the cameras do it, right? I mean, the cameras finish off the circles for people. It's certainly not something that you see with your eyes. I mean, I could go out at night and look at the North Star and watch the stars make a quarter turn or a half turn, and only my camera software finishes those turns.
Yeah, exactly. It's time lapse. So you're seeing, it's like connect the dots. You got a sample here, sample here, sample here. After a while, obviously you can see those dots are leading to a form. So, and that's it. So, okay. So, speaking of that particular video, guys, and we'll kind of change up the subject here a little bit, about Mark Sargent. I'm sure most people saw this particular video, and Mark Sargent was on the This Morning show, I believe, with Philip and Holly. Yeah, that's what it says here, derp. This Morning show with Philip and Holly, and he was on there for just a shade over 10 minutes. He got he got drilled pretty hard from him, and it's interesting. I talked to Mark just a couple days ago about this, and he really told me in depth everything that was going on. But it's amazing how everything about this was scripted. And there are a few times when, Philip kind of deviated from the script, particularly in the section where he said, well, I've been on the Concorde and I see the curvature myself. And Mark came back with a great answer. It says, no, you want to believe that you saw the curvature, but you really didn't. And I don't think he took too kindly to that. And then, of course, we all saw the newspapers saying, oh, Mark Sargent or Flat Earther accuses Philip of lying, right? Interesting. Yeah.
He didn't even accuse him of lying at all. He said, no, I think you wanted to see the curve. That's not telling somebody that they're lying. But when Neil deGrasse says from 120,000 feet, you can't see the curve, all you see is flat. Well, basically, right.
Yep. So
double standards. That's what they have. Of course, anything that Mark would have said, they would use against him. We know this, right? Like, of course, whatever slipped. That's why it's so difficult to take a position like this and being one of these things, because you're being baited in a way, right? Especially when it's so overbearingly controlled, like you're saying. And I don't know exactly what Mark told you, but how exactly they scripted the whole conversation, which is quite odd to do.
It's amazing, and he himself said he even had a role in writing that script. But those yellow pieces of paper that you're seeing, that is entirely scripted, and they have a whole fleet of producers that are on, like in one floor down. But what he did tell me is he said, and he said this also on Robin's show the other day on Lifting the Lid, is that a majority, believe it or not, of the producers that were downstairs are extremely interested in the flat Earth topic, and some of them are just fully on board. And I just thought, wow, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the people, it's like Mark said, you want to believe that, because the first time they saw a circle, immediately they assume that it's a curve and not a circle. They don't take into consideration the configuration of the eye, of the camera, of the lenses, this kind of a convex shape where the light or the image is projected in this circle manner. So they immediately, because they are chipped with a globe, they see a circle and they assume that must be the curvature of the Earth, And the other thing that was, and this is just for a commentary, in the Madrid conference, a friend of the pilot that was there, he commented me, he made a comment on the plane, the Concorde, and he told me that one of the things that it was this kind of quote-unquote conspiracy or tragedy, maybe planning tragedy to take out the Concorde, was because the pilots start to receiving so much radiation up in that kind of altitude that they start forming like tumors, not cancer, but start affecting the health of the pilot for flying so high without proper protection. Like if you will be maybe in the case of the military plane that you put all these suits, special suits, things like that. I just comment that this was the commentary from this guy.
Did it fly much higher than normal planes, Zito?
Yeah, exactly. You are flying more high, and maybe you receive more radiation than the 10 kilometers, 12 kilometers altitude of the commercial plane. I just dropped this comment because that was he was talking me about, and just that. I am not saying that is the case or that is 100% real, but it was something that just caught my attention.
Yep, very good. Okay, so got another super chat from Kevin Moyer, who says, "I am a plumber and have the experiment with the glass pipe to finally destroy the globe forever. I'd like a few minutes to tell you about it sometime." Well, Kevin, that would be great. Write us an email. Bob@jeranism.com would be great, or jeranism at yahoo.com. Either one of us, or all of our links are in the description. You can send it to all of us. But thank you for that comment and for the super chat. And also the other thing about this is Mark. I got to tell you, I really love Mark. He is an amazing person. He goes and he dedicates all this time for it. He never gets a penny, not a penny, for doing this. The only thing that is provided to him is, they provide the airfare and the room and stuff like that, but he is never compensated for stuff like this. And, the one time I think that he was compensated for that commercial he did down in Australia, he donated, I believe, just about 100% of that to the Globe Live Tour. So they really got to give props to Mark for that. He's an amazing guy. So. All right.
I just got an email from Mark because he just did the San Antonio meetup, and I offered, hey, can I donate? Because every week he's posting a meetup for me, and I just want to say, hey, can I donate a little bit to you? And he said, don't worry about it, bro. As long as I got the time, I'll do it. And so, yeah, what you're saying, spot on, Bob. He is a warrior, dude.
Yep, he absolutely is. Okay, so moving on. Ben, did you say you had something you kind of wanted to present? This would probably be a good time to do it if you want to.
All right, let's see if I can do that. Hold on one sec.
All righty.
Bring up the right screen.
Okay, and you're going to screen share, I assume?
Yes, I am. Is it working?
Don't see it yet, but I'm looking for it.
Specialty.
Yeah, you're going to have to take some lessons from
Any technical trouble, ask to the expert, man.
What am I doing wrong? Share screen.
There you go.
All right. Can you see it now?
I do indeed.
Okay. Well, thanks for giving me a chance to speak today. But what this first part that I wanted to talk about is actually it might be a little strange, but it was kind of like an epiphany that I had last night. I woke up about 6 a.m. and it just hit me. But maybe I wanted to get your thoughts about it, but then I wanted to go into my main presentation. But I've been wondering for like years now, why do the sellout shills always try so hard to engage us in these meaningless, prolonged debates, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? Yeah, I mean, they just want to consume all your time. Maybe it's to waste time. I was thinking maybe that these shills get paid per comment, and that they have rules that they have to, it has to be based on conversation, and that's why they keep trying to get you to get back into the conversation.
I wonder that too. I wonder that too, Ben. I think you're right.
I might still be right about that. But I remember, this is kind of a spiritual thing, but back in law school, my property law professor said that by becoming an attorney, you can guarantee that you're going to get a divorce. And I was newly married at that time, and so it really bothered me, and that's how I remember it so well. And although I never did get a divorce, I'm here to tell you that he was saying the truth. And I'm sure a few of you are wondering why I'm bringing up this, what it seems like a non sequitur, but why do you think my professor was right? And here's the epiphany I had this morning, and strangely enough, it rhymed. But it was, beware the spirit of debate. It darkens the soul as you no longer recognize friend from foe. And that is my word of caution to the debate channels and to everyone, beware of taking on that spirit of debate. Based on my own experience with many years of litigation, I can say that the spirit of debate does darken the soul. I'm telling you, there's a reason why they want you to repeatedly engage their minions in debate. Mm-hmm. And no, I don't believe the low-level shield knows that reason, but maybe his masters do. And of course, I could just be a loon as well. So, but anyway, let me get on to my main presentation.
Okay, can I make a comment about that really quick?
Yes, Ben? Please do.
I've never thought about that before, honestly, but in thinking, I'm that kind of a person where I can be very confrontational at times, especially when it comes to things that I'm very dead set about. And to say that, there haven't been times that it's caused problems between Cammie and I would not be exactly true because it has. And I've also noticed that people that do that, a lot of the attorneys, you're right, because I do a lot of work for attorneys and they do seem to be single a lot, always separated, for whatever reason. And, bringing it a little bit closer to home, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there are certain debate channels out there or people that thrive on this or the argument and stuff. And I have watched the people, let's just say, that are doing this over the last 5 years go from really decent, stand-up kind of people to just utter morons. I mean, they are hateful. They're awful. They've just turned into awful people. So, I would have to support what you are saying there, from personal experience in a multitude of ways and say that you're absolutely right. Then that's kind of disheartening, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I just know with recent events, and I'm not going to name names here, but I thought some of these people were my friends, that I promoted their channels. I tried to bend over backwards to give them more views and things. And they're just mean and rude and awful. And I'm sad to see it, that it's happening to people, even, for my Christian faith, some of these people who call themselves Christians, that just seem to be getting darker and darker. I'm sorry, but that's just my personal thoughts there on that.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ben. And it is obvious, and anybody that's been around, and watched this transition of these people, it's kind of scary. It's really
what is odd, Bob? One characteristic that's striking, I think, is that they seem to be textbook bashers, scientism sort of 101, right? They missed the memo, sort of, because some of them are using just basic science textbooks to create their kind of winning argument. Or it's very similar to what Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about. He won't debate. He will send the nerd crews, the hordes of nerds. He talks of the nerd whatever, nerdiverse or whatever he calls it, but he won't debate it. Because he's afraid of whatever it is, because he's on the side of objective truth, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Just to touch on there you go. You got it, bro.
Ben, what you were saying was funny about people who debate all the time, because I called to say happy birthday to my stepdad this morning. He's an attorney, and he wasn't at the house. He's in the desert alone instead of being with his family. And I just thought that was interesting. I just threw that out there because. Yeah, maybe that had something to do with it.
No, if anyone, for those who know me, I stopped the litigation process because I told my wife, I think it's darkening my soul. I'm becoming evil by doing this on a daily basis, by fighting. And you just stop caring about truth. It's all about your position. I got to win no matter what. It doesn't matter regardless. And I think it's a dark position to start putting yourself in. It's just I don't want to be a preacher or anything. I'm just telling, be careful of that, because I can tell you based on my personal experience that it's real. It does happen.
But would you say, Ben, that sometimes lawyers are necessary for, when you have a problem?
I'm an anarchist. Oh no. No, I believe in arbitration system, not. And I guess in that system you would have attorneys, but not like we do now.
Or like a relational justice kind of system.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
Just to touch on what Ben's saying, like, there's definitely a lot of truth in what he's saying because, like, for example, when I was dating the McToon dude, I was, like, legitimately exhausted. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, it was exhausting. It's draining. And knowing that they're just going to pull out their little math tricks and not even understand what they're arguing, and no matter what, they can't admit the truth, and they're being dishonest, they're going to be, naturally, it's going to drag you down no matter what. So, I think there's a lot of truth in what he's saying.
Well, Jaron stopped debating as well because this crew, because he can speak to it.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's just the same for me. I totally agree with what Ben's saying. I don't need to win. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me whether somebody wins a debate or loses a debate. It's not important to me. I just need to be honest with my thoughts and my opinions and let it go from there, So I like to have shows where I can just talk and be honest with how I feel and be honest with how I see the world. And that's that. I don't care to win. It doesn't do any good to my, and like you said, you kind of almost become defensive as to my position needs to constantly be the winning position, and you get away from really seeking truth. It's more about seeking your own fame or fortune or some, I don't call it fortune, but your own fame or notoriety, which I don't care about. It's just the honest truth. That's just how it is. It's how I got started in this. When I made my first video, I certainly didn't care about my argument needs to win. My argument needs to be correct. It's simply, here's how I see the world, and it's a lot different than the world that I was taught, period. And from there, people can watch or people can not watch. Maybe people watch me and say, oh, this guy's out of his mind. It's not how I see the world. That's great. It doesn't bother me at all. So it's a whole idea of who wins or loses, and no matter what. And it's kind of like the Austin debate. It's great to watch. I enjoy that sometimes. Sometimes I don't. I can see how somebody would be extremely exhausted from looking at that. But what happens at the end of that debate? Well, everybody on one side says somebody won, and everybody on the other side says the other guy won. So where did you really get? Other than it's good to hear Austin, because I know when I listen to Austin, it's so obvious. It's just why I gravitate to some of these people and enjoy their streams, is because he's being honest. He's not there trying to lie. He's not there trying to deceive. And I see that with quite a few people on our side, and I don't really see that with the other side. I see the other side is all about winning, and they want their arguments to be, I'm right and you're wrong, and it just becomes kind of a he said, she said, back and forth. And I can totally see what Taboo's saying about it darkening your soul. It absolutely zaps your energy to when your goal is to just go out there and say, hey, I want to be, and I don't like the word truther so much, but I want to be somebody who just gives my honest opinion. And if you're going to be attacked because of how wrong you are, well, that's that. My opinion. You want to call it wrong, go ahead. Have a field day. Doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, I think one thing, if I may add, just a last thought, is that what is being called a debate. Now, if you think, for example, Nathan and Team Skeptic, right? What was that? Like that was being called a debate. We would have hoped that you could have two sides coming to conversation and presenting their points and having the points being rebuted and so on in a way that's organized and civil, and that there's no interruptions and so on. But you don't see this. Emotions get out of hand. I mean, Nathan did a great job holding himself with that guy. I mean, I don't know if I could have done this.
More power to him. I couldn't have done it either. Not when you see what it evolves into and what it became, and how this guy just gets all flustered and yelling and screaming. And of course, you don't think that darkens your soul? If you got used.
Yeah, but you mean, like there is a way to have a conversation, present 2 points. Some people do that in school for an exercise, even if you don't agree with the opposition. That's what lawyers do, right? That goes back to ancient Rome. There's a Seneca, the Elders, Suasoriae. There's these Roman texts that talk about very complicated cases, examples. For instance, like a Vestal virgin that gets raped. Is she supposed to lose her position as a Vestal virgin or whatever? It is her fault. And then the two sides for exercise argue the different sides. And that would be just as a rhetorical exercise to see how well you can make the case. But it's not what we see. We don't see even this kind of intellectual, for the sake of intellectual exercise. I think we could probably, among us, we can present the character of the best Glober there is. not even Baller Dave, of course, that's kind of an annoying glober, but one that actually knows the arguments, and presented two sides. But we don't see this. We see always is very emotional and calling names. That's a total waste of time. And once we realize that that's what it is, you don't get to talk to somebody who's honest. Sometimes you do. I talked to that guy Lamar Glover. At least he was a little bit. Mark Sargent talked to that guy Zweerink. That was very interesting. It was a great conversation. So it happens sometimes, but in the internet with the other people who have channels and these kind of people that associated with Red's rhetoric and whatnot, whatever they are. I mean, for me, they've been dead and gone for a long time. Sometimes they appear, and I had to react to Nathan's one in the magazine. I wrote a little bit about it, but yeah, what can we do? They are zombified, like Austin said. And, we just get to try to help them. It's a kind of illness. I don't know what to do. There's some cure. Information and humility. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
Okay.
Great. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and start my main presentation.
No, go right ahead, Ben. Sorry about that. You know this panel. We go
good.
everywhere.
It's all good.
Just one more thing I wanted to say. No, I'm just kidding, Ben. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I wanted to do for this little presentation is I want us all to pretend we are Globe supporters here, but honest Globe supporters. I mean, let's not pretend we're the dishonest Wolfies, the dishonest Simon Dans, the Bob Your Science guy. And instead, let's say that we're all true and honest Globe supporters here as an intellectual exercise. Mm-hmm. But as genuine Globe supporters, we need to address the fact that flat earthers have made a whole bunch of amazing scientific and historical discoveries. And for instance, in this BMLSB 69 has been going out there and doing these, the so-called black swan. He did these videos showing that the horizon is much further than is possible under the globe. So we globe earthers have had it wrong for thousands of years that there is no geometric horizon. And the flat earthers were able to discover that this horizon now appears to be an apparent horizon that can appear anywhere. And so anyway, I just thought that was an amazing discovery by the flat earthers that they were able to do this. One of the other discoveries that the flat earthers made is that the horizon does actually rise up with the observer as they gain elevation. Another thing that we globe earthers thought that was impossible. We also one of the things the flat earthers discovered was that nature has no other purpose than it seems to trick us that we live on a ball. I mean, we absolutely, without question, see too far. So for whatever reason, nature automatically creates this false illusion that the Earth is flat, and the Earth has some unknown magical refractional properties that enable us to see forever on this flat Earth. And again, this new refractional properties that the flat earthers discovered. I mean, we should be celebrating flat earthers for this new amazing discovery. Another one I wanted to talk about, this discovery of flat earthers, is that hair in space strangely does not appear to flow like it does in normal zero G gravity. It's static. It's still. It looks like the bride of Frankenstein. So again, the flat earthers discover something amazing. I mean, I don't know how much it's going to help science, but at least for your hairdressers, zero space somehow makes your hair look like Bride of Frankenstein. I think that's another amazing discovery from the flat earthers. Another interesting thing about what the flat earthers discovered is that we really don't need to test complex machinery anymore. Like the International Space Station, for example, they never actually put the whole thing together, run it through engineering tests or anything like that, pressure tests. None of that actually had to happen. They just had to, create separate pieces and then put them up in space. We don't, engineers need to understand this, that we don't need to actually go out and test things anymore. We just need to, have NASA put its stamp on it, and we know for a fact it'll work every time and there'll never be a problem with it. So another amazing discovery for the flat earthers. A few of the other things that flat earthers have discovered is that, for example, is that everything seems to wrap around the curvature, like radar. Radar wraps around the curvature. Sonar wraps around the curvature. Humpback whales can communicate around the curvature. I mean, who knew that until the flat earthers came around and told us that, wow, humpback whales can communicate 4,000 miles around the curvature. I mean, thank heavens for flat earthers. Who would have thought, like the Loran system, that the navigational systems like that they can operate without curvature? I mean, I never knew that until the flat earthers came around. What about VHF beams also wrap around the curvature? I mean, we all thought that they didn't, but we now know that they do because Nicobine and FE Core and JBoss, they have all shown us also now that microwave beams don't need actual line of sight, that they can also bend around the curvature. And that, think of all these new applications of microwaves now that we know that they can wrap around solid objects and line of sight is no longer required. So again, flat earthers made an amazing discovery that everything just wraps around the curvature to present a false flat earth. This was, here's that magical, those what do you call it, the microwave dishes that can communicate without actually having line of sight because of, great technology that the flat earthers have shown that is possible. Here's something else that flat earthers did. We now know that we have to change all the Navy manuals because before, Navy manuals never mentioned the fact that you have to be wary about shooting the mirages, because in this case, this boat's going to end up shooting the big bulge of water that's in between it and those ships. But now we know that because of flat earthers that we need to change that, because those are actually mirages back there, that we need to actually change the Navy manuals to warn them about shooting at anything that could be hidden behind the curvature, even though it looks like it's not. I think that's an important discovery. Another discovery for flat earthers is that professionals, for some reason, airline pilots, military professionals, radar operators, gunners, missile operators, engineers, commercial surveyors, and many more all state that there is no accounting for the curvature or the Earth's rotation in any manner. Again, I never knew that until the flat earthers came around. So thank heavens for flat earthers for giving us some new ideas about how the world actually operates, because that's pretty amazing that no professionals actually have to account for the curvature. Another fascinating one was the fact that the 8 inches per mile squared, that I never knew about that the Earth actually dropped to 8 inches per mile squared until the flat earthers come around. Another amazing discovery, and the fact that airplanes can actually automatically adjust for that 8 inches per mile squared without making any adjustments. Another amazing discovery from flat earthers. How about the fact that satelloons are real? Before flat earth, did any of you know about satelloons? I never knew about these things, but thank heavens for flat earthers for showing us that for a long time, for whatever reason, we never knew about these satellites that hang from balloons. But thank heavens for the flat earthers to come around and show us that actually happens. Now, what about the this is a big one, the Coriolis effect. Think about how the Coriolis effect, we always thought that Coriolis applied to everything, but it turns out that the Coriolis effect only applies to snipers and toilets. But has no effect on east-west airplane flights, high-altitude balloons, or even shooting a bull up in the air. Felix Baumgartner took 2.5 hours to get up to his altitude, and the Coriolis effect had zero impact on Felix Baumgartner. Amazing new aspects of the Coriolis effect that we ball earthers had no idea about. Thank heavens for the flat earthers to point that out. What about the inverse square law of light? That's another fascinating one. Is now we know the inverse square law of light doesn't apply to anything in space. So, wow, amazing discovery by the flat earthers. This was a big one. Who knew that the moonlight was cool until the flat earthers came around and showed us, hey, wait a second, moonlight is actually cool light. What the hell is up with that? But again, the flat earthers discovered that moonlight is cool. Wow, we could base whole classes in our university based on why made up reasons why the moonlight is cool. I actually have about 30 more of these.
This is great, Ben. Keep going, buddy.
The only thing I have to say so far is I thought flat earthers weren't really looking for the truth.
That's right. Nope. No, we're just in it for the super chats and money.
You forget how many of us, thanks to the flat earth, we are with a girlfriend.
There you go.
Hey, man, thanks to flat earth for the love.
You thanks God every day.
Of course, man. and so many other things,
Okay, well,
Keep
another amazing discovery from the flat earthers is the fact that no matter how much the earth changes in motion, some extraordinary force makes it so that we never feel anything or can measure or detect any sort of this changing in motions. It doesn't matter, that the angular, that we're just like the example from Dave Marsh, pointed that out. We now know that for a fact that the gravity somehow adjusts and keeps us all, makes it all work out so that we don't actually feel or detect anything. Another amazing discovery from the flat earthers. What about, the big discovery from mechanical gyroscopes, that flat earthers realize that they do retain rigidity in space, except that they do automatically also adjust for the curvature and axial rotation. We now know that flat earthers pointed that out, and thank heavens for them, because now we know that they automatically adjust for airplanes and stuff, and so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Is it here's here was one for another flat earthers. They discovered that some satellites hang from wires. I mean, I think that's an important discovery from flat earthers, because, we need to know that NASA has to use wires to hold up some of its satellites up in space. I mean, that's a huge discovery for flat earthers. I mean, I always thought the satellites would just somehow magically stay up there, but they don't. They don't. They actually have to be held up by a wire. So now we know. Sorry.
That's just a video.
I'm sorry, I didn't have enough time to get all the videos in line, but like on the moon landings, you already showed that video, but we now know that the moon includes a strange vertical wall that looks like a movie backdrop and always has a horizon line that looks like an end of a stage. We now know that the moon has these backdrop looking features, so that's amazing. I mean, I think we have to admit that as Globe supporters, that the flat earthers figured that out. How about this one? How about the flat earthers figured out that all flames are invisible in space? I mean, I thought that at least that the fire from the ascent stages of the Apollo missions would actually leave some sort of light when they blasted off, or some sort of flame. But thank heavens, flat earthers corrected us. They don't need light or flames or anything. They just go up very smooth.
That video you made, Ben, with talk about the flames, it's so funny. At the end, it's like, yeah, let's see if they're right. They get the same fuel. It's like with smoke. Oh my God! Did you skip over the scuba diver in this?
In the suit.
Yeah, I would have thought that the flat earthers figured out that there's actually scuba divers up in space. I mean, we need a flat earthers to point that one out. That NASA has
and the bubbles,
scuba divers up there.
Bubbles can change directions in space.
And Jaron, you've been wrong all this time. That they have the scuba divers up there in space. I mean, they practice with scuba divers up in the water because they actually have them up there in space helping the astronauts.
It could be. I haven't thought about that. The other thing, though, I noticed that you put out a video that reminded me that lemons are see-through. I didn't know that we could put our hand right through lemons, so that's good to know. I'm going to try that later today.
It's also good to know, guys, that the thermosphere is not hot. I mean, Google will tell you it's 4,000 degrees, but it's not hot. I mean, metals can get through it, no problem. So don't pay attention.
That's a
to
great
what
discovery of
Google
the
tells you.
flat earthers.
Yeah, excellent discovery from the flat earthers. And the flat earthers discovered that we don't have a three-body mass equation. So all these predictions that the globe model allegedly makes are really just hijacked from the flat earthers. I think that's a great discovery that the flat earthers made. So,
well, here's another big one. Unfortunately, I don't have the video up right now, but flat earthers figured out that rockets don't actually go straight up into the air to get into space. They actually arc and look like they fall back down. I mean, sure, the altimeters of those rockets don't do that, show that effect, but flat earthers figured out that the way to get to space is to arc back down and fall back down towards the ocean, and that is the way to get back into space. That was an amazing discovery.
CGI as well.
Yeah, and another thing that the flat earthers figured out was that the Challenger astronauts are all okay. I mean, I was very sad as a child when I watched all those astronauts blow up, but the flat earthers figured out that they're still alive. we have to thank the flat earthers for figuring that one out. How about the fact that good times for all, sky free, and life is short, all discovered that objects disappear from the bottom up without any curvature? Thank you for all of those people that are doing that and proving that we ball earthers never knew about that until they came around, and those flat earthers.
And letters for 2 cents. Let's send letters for 2 cents from a flat earther. I know him. His name is Jera, something like that. Yeah.
That doesn't work though for you down in Argentina.
No,
sorry.
man. No, we have everything expensive for us here. Okay, even $2 cents is expensive.
It's Aero. You can still make your own cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's at least. And I follow the advice from Jeran, and I have my own water distiller, and I really recommended that. Yeah, I learned so much from you, Jeran. Thank you so much for being a flat earther, man.
Did you really get a distiller,
Yes. My girlfriend helped me to buy it. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. I combined it, and this is talking serious. I combined it with water from the sea for add the minerals, and because I'm used the therapy from salt water from the sea, okay, from the ocean, not putting salt into water, regular water. So I remineralize with ocean sea water, and that's perfect. I drink that every day.
You mean you just didn't pee in it, Aero?
No, that technique. I don't know if I'm gonna follow you. Maybe you can talk with Dave.
Another time.
With Dave.
Okay, just check.
I am not going to give the surname, but
Not there yet.
Dave Murphy followed that kind of technique.
Hey, Ben, because of flat earthers, we learned that you can compress flat tables and see curvature. So that was pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah. That was Jaren's finding.
Yeah, good stuff, Jaren. So that's a great one.
And the flat earthers helped us realize that the only time ever in the history of all observable phenomena that gas doesn't need a physical container is the atmosphere.
Yeah, there's only one place you can find it, and that's our atmosphere. That is an amazing discovery of the flat earthers. I mean, how in the world gravity solves that? I think we need about 10 courses at the university to figure that one out, because that's pretty amazing. Here's a historical one for the history department. For some reason, there were no globes since 1492, even though everyone supposedly knew it was a globe for thousands of years. I mean, that's a fascinating little fact that the flat earthers figured out. I mean, and they also figured out that Columbus was a piss poor navigator, because he should have known that he was 9,000 miles short of the Indian Ocean when he called those the people there in the Bahamas Indians. I mean, if he knew that the Earth was already had a circumference of 24,901 miles, he was 9,000 miles away from the Indian Ocean. So we know that Columbus was an imbecile as well. So thanks to the flat earthers.
Hey Ben, I have a new one also. Captain Axiom of the Iron Guild, thanks for the super chat, says flat earthers also discovered that giant mice can survive in the vacuum of space as long as they stay on top of the thruster rocker. Shout out to Nate. That's a good one.
So here's another one. The flat earthers discovered that the government is hiding something in Antarctica. I mean, we know it's not to hide the flat Earth, but we do know that they're at least not they're preventing people from traveling independently below the 60th south parallel for some reason. Must be cool. Go ahead.
And make poo-poo in Antarctica can cost you $1 million, and that was discovered by a flat earther. Not because a flat earther make poo-poo on Antarctica, but because the flat earther like to research before test,
Oh, here's an amazing discovery by Jaron, that crazy flat earther. He discovered that Devon Island in Canada looks a lot like Mars. That was a good one. It's just amazing that NASA found a spot on Earth that looks just like Mars to practice driving around a small cart that looks just like the lunar rover. So we got to hand it to Jaron for figuring that one out.
Cosmic coincidence. That's a Nobel Prize. That's another Nobel Prize.
Here's okay, this will be my last one. The entire solar system and all comets, meteors, and everything else are tied together with gravity rubber bands. that hold it all together as it rockets through space, and it's what enables all this tabular performance to keep repeating, even though everything's supposedly shooting at millions of miles per hour. Thank heavens to these Einstein gravity rubber bands that keep it all together. And so just another amazing discovery by flat earthers. And I just think we as honest, good, true globe supporters need to recognize these amazing discoveries from moving forward. But there you go. That's my little presentation.
But I want to believe that I'm flying through space at 2.2 million miles per hour. I want to believe it. I want to believe it so bad. It sounds like so much fun. I mean, I know how fast my car is, 60 miles per hour, roller coaster at 80 miles per hour. I just want to be rocketing through space at 2.2 million miles per hour around an endless vacuum. I need it.
No doubt. I mean, it's better than flying rockets there if we could just fly the Earth there, right? Crazy. Ben, that was priceless, man.
Okay.
Alrighty then.
There's hundreds more.
So is that a new video you're gonna make with this compiled, or?
Oh, no.
You've already done that?
Maybe I should. The list could keep going on and on.
I have a feeling there are a couple people out there that are going to cut that segment out of the show and make a video about it. I would put money on it because that was priceless, Ben. All right. Wow. How do you follow an act like that? All right. Okay. Well, let's attempt anyway. I want to show you guys something that I found this week, or actually Cami found it this week, and this is priceless. It is in Yahoo News, and it says, "Why the most distant object ever visited looks like a snowman. The flyby delivers results." Well, we've all seen this thing, right? And everybody says it looks like a snowman, so they've flown by it now. And look at this, guys. It's amazing. You've got the head, you've got the eye sockets, you've got the little nose nostrils here, you got the mouth slit down here, and you got little buttons, just like Frosty the Snowman, going all the way down the front. And you got a place here for the arm and everything. I mean, absolutely amazing. Is this not trolling at its best, guys?
Oh man,
looks like a potato.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just absolutely terrible that people buy this, and it looks like it's just one of those textures on 3D objects, right? Almost like you say.
Yeah. No, this is. I mean, if you start looking into the borders, for example, you don't have a dent in the border. It's so smooth. Even when supposedly you must have some kind of, sharp and crisp. Maybe deformation. I mean, this is a 3D model with a texture, like you said before, and who knows what else. But what is not is a piece of rock flying in the space. I mean, with all I don't know. I like to speak in Spanish. Es una mierda todo esto. La verdad que es una locura. Totalmente una locura.
I know a lot of mierda.
You know mierda, okay.
I know mierda. It's like the mierda in Antarctica, right?
It looks like a turd.
Yes, exactly. Nice.
It looks like a turd that spent some time in the sun by a dog.
Yeah, it looks like something. But anyway, I saw that and it's like, wow, NASA, they just troll us with stuff like this. That and the jack-o'-lantern Halloween thing, and the did they come out with the heart for Valentine's Day? What other crazy things? The peanut, the walnut, the hazelnut, or whatever, or maybe that was just Karen B.
The Halloween. Remember the Halloween? They had the sounds from Saturn.
Oh yeah, that was another good one.
Yeah.
Listen to the spooky sounds of Saturn.
Yeah, just absolutely unbelievable. Okay, so Jared, let's go ahead and move on to the primary thing. And do you want to screen share and take the lead on this, and we'll kind of comment on it, or how would you like to do this?
Yeah, and I was just gonna, show it, and I don't know if we'll get copyright for it. That's the sad thing.
And I don't care if we do.
Yeah, it's just so stupid. But I mean, have everybody seen this video? I don't know if everybody's
I
seen
saw it. I saw it and watched it.
And I think I
No,
agree.
I don't think I have.
I agree with Ben so much when Ben looked at it and he said he was angry. It made me angry too, because you start watching it and you just realize that it's a lie. It's a total lie. And what I mean by a lie is at least, like, I don't understand why people need to be disingenuous or why they need to misrepresent things. So in this whole video, the whole premise is, oh, one of our directors or one of our producers went home to talk to their mother, and their mother said she's a flat earther. So at first you're like, all right, I'm interested to hear this conversation, how it went. I mean, it's just like Dave's video, right? Dave said, hey, I went and talked to a 102-year-old. Here's what the conversation was. And you're like, I'm interested to hear it. And you can see that it's really a conversation between Dave and a 102-year-old. And they're really talking honestly, and there's no deception there. It's just two people talking. But in this particular video, the guy's talking about he goes home and talks to his mother, and his mother says she's a flat earther. And everything that she says is not at all what, really flat earthers believe. And then he goes as far as to say that she's a card-carrying member of the Flat Earth International Conference, right? Which there is no such thing as a card-carrying member of the FEIC. Just like he says his mom said that there's going to be a cruise that she's going to be taking to Antarctica with the FEIC. Well, all of us here have spoken at the FEIC. Is anybody here a card-carrying member? No, because why? It doesn't exist. So this is how clueless these guys are. Is they're making this video, and the only person that would fall for this is any globe believer who has never heard of flat Earth. Is going to fall for all the things in this and think everything that's being said is true, and that there really was a conversation between one of these producers and his mother. But as the video goes on, you realize it's a complete and total lie. So why do they have to be disingenuous? Why do they have to misrepresent? And everything they say is completely wrong. Again, they show the sun basically navigating to the North Pole, and they give the same answers, right? Well, I asked my mom, what about seasons? And he says here that his mom says it's just like with a turtle with a flat Earth on its back. She didn't say that. There's nobody who's ever said that. Nobody's ever said, oh, the Earth is flat like the one with a turtle holding it up. No one's ever said that. So it's just a complete and total lie. And yeah, that's basically what I was going to do, is go through this video and just show that everything that they say is a lie. They're just making it up. And some parts are decent, but most parts are just completely and totally a lie. And that's what I had the hardest time with, is just being disingenuous. Ben, did you see it the same way? Is that what upset you?
Oh, absolutely. It's, they falsify the flat Earth, all of our explanations. I mean, they even had, and the one made me the most mad was the Pac-Man one, where they said that, how do jets avoid the ice walls? They go through, automatically reappear on the other side. I mean, just absolute nonsense. But looking forward to what you got to say. Well,
yeah, and here you go. She told me the sun just moves around the flat Earth, and at times it's right above the, and then here, this part here, she said the sun and moon were the same size. Go ahead and play this part, Bob. Just play the sound right from right here.
Okay.
But Mom, I said, the sun is much bigger than the moon, and that is observable. That orange plate thing doesn't really mean anything.
Hey, you can pause it there.
Said,
but
observable?
Mom, what does he mean? The observable was the opposite of that. The observable is that the sun and moon are the same size. So what does he mean by, Mom, what are you talking about? The sun is observably larger than the moon. Who says? According to what you've been told, yeah, but not observable. So it's just a lie there. And you can...
It keeps going. Yeah, let's go ahead and play it. It's only 10 minutes, so let's play through it, and I'll stop it at certain key points. And guys, if you want to comment, just start talking, and I'll pause it. So here we go.
Little segments should be fine. And again, this is for commentary and critique. That's the point of the copyright provision of the law.
Yes,
so
because the ball earthers that made this are just dead wrong. And again, they go back to a technique. Not only are they saying stupid things that are obviously wrong, like, well, the sun is obviously, it's observably so much bigger. It's like, no, just like Jared said, they're the same size. Again, same old tactic. They tell you the obvious truth, like when you have something that is so blatantly flat that you shouldn't, oh, well, that's great ball earth proof. It's so ridiculous. And that's the tactic that's used throughout this. And also, they use the ball earth cosmology on the flat earth model, saying things like, well, if the sun was really going around the earth like that, there would never be any daytime, and finally they get around to saying something about, their different sizes and act like a spotlight. But even that isn't entirely accurate. But let's go ahead and go through this. Here we go.
Say things like, oh, when it's night in New York, it's daytime in in LA, and this is impossible on a flat model. I mean, just to say that is so disingenuous and so untrue. It's ridiculous. I mean, it just gets sad that these are the techniques that they have to use, and this is what they've been using for the 5 years we've been doing this, right? It's the same 10 arguments that we know that the Earth is round, even though they've all been debunked. Go ahead.
Okay.
I also explained to her that if this theory were true, then New York and Los Angeles would see the sun set and rise at the same time, which is not true. There is a time difference, so when it's evening in New York, it's afternoon in LA. How can that be? She told me.
Yeah, again, using the ball earth cosmology on a flat earth, which, obviously people are going to go, oh, well, that makes sense. But no, it doesn't make sense because you have to explain the context of why that is, true or not true, right?
Just think of the ridiculousness of I always have to say the number just because it's so stupid, is they say the sun is 867,000 miles wide. And so if that is your belief and that's what you're going to stand by, then yes, if you explain flat earth, it makes no sense. Well, the sun would heat up the entire earth. Well, yeah, it would if there was anything anywhere close to something that large, and there just isn't. There just isn't something in the world that's that big.
You know the problem, right? They don't have the app.
Right.
That's it.
There's the Zodiac Clock app, and keep an eye out. David and I did a video that's going to be coming out in a couple days about the new features for the app, so make sure you get that app. And if you want to hear more from Dave Weiss too, by the way, he'll be on with Crow and Jason immediately following this show, but I'll talk about that on our way out. Go ahead.
Yeah, because that shows exactly how that works, right? How the sun would be doing exactly that on a flat Earth model. So,
right. And we see in perspective, and things move away from you, and it's just like being, watch my presentation my presentation, but Travis's presentation from Life is Short on my channel, and learn how the way we see in a hallway is the exact same way we see looking out over the land of Earth.
Yep.
And that's why they don't teach perspective at all either.
Yep. And East and West are not East and West like people might believe.
Right.
So let's keep going.
I'm an ignorant fool, but didn't answer my query. This was quite strong language for my mom. It seemed to me that all those hours she had spent arguing online had made her quite intolerant to opposing ideas.
Gee, Ben, see, there you go. At least that part is maybe true, right? All that time arguing had made her intolerant. There you go. We found a bit of truth in it.
In just this little conversation there, he says that his mom called him an ignorant fool. I call bullshit. It didn't happen. I mean, this whole thing is made up. That's what's so frustrating about it, is it's not an honest. And when you first start seeing it, you're like, oh, wait, this guy went home to talk to his mom about flat Earth. I'm interested in hearing how this conversation went. And as the video moves on, you realize, wait a second, this conversation never took place. Therefore, you're just lying for the sake of it.
They might even have been fed the script by somebody who wants them to do certain video, because this is a big channel that does this kind of graphics with the same kind of style, and they get a lot of views. So they get sponsored. Somebody comes and says, hey, yeah, and you need to do a video. Here's the script. He just delivers, boom, makes the money and moves on.
Yep. And it's not a real conversation. And that's when it becomes disingenuous and people misrepresent. That's where you know something's up. If honesty is behind it, then I'll watch, then I'll pay attention, then I'll listen. But when it's misrepresentation, I don't know where you go from there besides just to call it out and move on. That's all you can do when you see things like this.
It's the same thing, the same kind of conversation between Kepler and God. And I'm serious. When you read the biography of Kepler, Jack Parsons prayed to the God fan to every rocket has a successfully mission accomplished. Well, Kepler prayed every night to God for what Copernicus said about the heliocentric model was true. And that is in his biography. So can you imagine Kepler praying, saying, please God, let Copernicus to be real and let Copernicus to be good and true. So this kind of conversation, like you say, and sorry for my really bad joke, but it's the kind of, it's the same thing. I mean, they invented all kind of stuff to trying to debunk us.
But imagine what they're going and saying here too. They're saying that because his mom became a flat earther, now she's gone as far as to call her son an ignorant fool.
Yeah, now she's intolerant just because she's a
Right, but the irony of saying that we're intolerant when they're sitting here misrepresenting the real stance.
Right. Exactly. This is what is like you start to realize as this video goes on and why you get so angry about it. You're like, wait a second, this is completely Of course that this lady didn't start arguing online and then now she's calling her son an ignorant fool Because when you say that, people look at it and they go, oh man, look what happens when you start to get into flat Earth. You start to call your children ignorant fools. And it just doesn't happen. It's just not the case. But go ahead, Bob.
Yep. Okay. There we go.
I say it, I was offended by her breach of familiar decorum. Okay, I said, once I unruffled my feathers. What's at the edge of this flat world, and why don't things just fall off? She told me that surrounding the Earth is a giant wall of ice, and that is Antarctica. Like Game of Thrones, I said, laughing. Should we fear the White Walkers? If you're not going to take this seriously, I won't explain further, she said sternly. Okay, go on. She said the sun was in fact not millions of miles away. She said it's actually only about 32 miles in diameter, and it hovers around the flat Earth at around 3,000 miles away. It acts like a moving spotlight, she said. So when it's above you, it's light, and when it goes away, it's dark. But it also moves closer to the North Pole in the middle of the Earth at a gradual rate, and then it moves outward toward the edge of the world. And that's why we have seasons. It's that simple. The thing is, Mom, if you use this model, the sun would never set. You can actually watch scientists making a model of your version of the events. It doesn't work according to how things are down here. Moreover, I told her, you
can actually see scientists making a model of your version of events. What's he even talking about?
The matter is very, very technical. The matter is very technical to speak. I mean,
very technical. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to interject this in for just a second, just so people understand that, it does work on a flat Earth. And, we've all talked about our specific dome of vision that we all have. And this is due to the characteristics of our eyes. Lenses also behave in the exact same way. This all goes under the category of perspective. And this particular video did a great job of pointing that out. So I just want to play a couple minutes of this to show the ball earthers out there why what was just said was ridiculous, as far as his rebuttal. So let's listen to this for just a second from P-Brain.
And let's say the stars actually spread out for hundreds, thousands of miles, let's say, and let's say we can't see them all. We can only see the dome of our perspective vision, which is about a 12,000 mile diameter circle or 6,000 mile radius. That's all the stars we can see. And the stars lower to the horizon at the edge of that circle, of a 12,000 diameter circle. So as you move, this dome of stars moves with you, or your dome of vision, I call it. Anyway, let's check it out. Well, just like, let's say you're standing at the North Pole, right? And the stars rotate. You have Polaris overhead, and the stars are rotating around you counterclockwise. As you move south, Polaris starts to lower in the northern sky, and the stars start to tip. It's almost, I like to think of it as like a salad bowl, right? And so the salad bowl has the bottom is up, that's where Polaris is, and the rim of the bowl is on the ground. That's also where the sun would go around, from your perspective at the North Pole.
Okay, there's a little pause here. Just kind of soak this in and continue P-Brain.
Yeah, Bob, I will add, when you observe the 24-hour day in the north, it does hover above the horizon. Even from Norway, which is 1,000 miles from the North Pole, it's not zigzagging across the sky as if you're on a tilted ball. It is moving, relatively just above the horizon.
Yeah, I lived in 60 degrees north, and everyone there sees the sun in the summer. It's almost all day in the sky. When it goes around close to the horizon, it just dips almost. The light doesn't stop, and then it comes back on, and it goes around in a circle. Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue on with P-Brain.
So as you head south, the salad bowl starts to tip onto its side, and so that, let's say you travel 3,000 miles south of the North Pole, everything would be rising in the northeast, sweeping out over the southern sky, and setting in the northwest.
And this, by the way, guys, also is the answer to the question of how an EQ telescope can work on a flat Earth, because you have to deal with perspective. And when you consider this perspective issue and you apply it to a ball, then you have a legitimate question to answer back, or to ask back, I should say, to the ball earthers. And that is, how can an EQ telescope possibly work on a ball Earth? You are not taking into account your visual parameters. You're not taking into account any atmospheric lensing effects or anything like that. You're just saying that, this is the way it is. And as you go down the side of that ball, then that's what's happening with the EQ mount telescope. Well, I'm sorry, our sight doesn't work that way and our atmosphere doesn't work that way. Therefore, I maintain it is impossible if we were on a ball Earth that an EQ mount telescope could work at all. So let's continue on.
Well said, Bob. Just a quick point I want to make on this one also, it explains why we see the southern stars rotation as well, is because if you think about it, like one of the big things is, well, how does this Australia, South Africa, and southern South America all see the same the southern star rotation? And the fact it is because nighttime is also rotating across the plane as well. So at one time certain part of the day it's over Australia, the nighttime, and then it's over South America, and that's why they can all see the southern star rotation based on perspective. Just something else I wanted to point out, which you can't quite see in the graphic, is that nighttime is also moving across that plane.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's continue on.
Way to the equator, Polaris would now be sitting on your northern horizon. The solid bowl would be completely tipped on its side, and half of it would be below the horizon. And now all the stars would be coming up east to west. And so the sun would also rise east to west. And now that's a hard one to visualize. Because if the stars are all rotating like a big disk around Polaris in the sky, a big flat disk, or if they're not a disk, they're a big dome, whichever one they are, if that's the case, and if it's a big flat disk and it's just perspective that's bringing the stars down, well then the people in the south say, hey, well the stars should be rotating just above the horizon, right? And stay equidistant to the horizon as they go around counterclockwise. That's what they'd say we should see. But that's not what we should see. We should see a clockwise southern rotation of the stars. See, we already know from crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays how perspective works on a grand scale. I mean, that's over 12,000 miles. You see the sun rays diverging out from the sun, and then perspective converges them down to the other horizon. That's over a 12,000 mile span.
Right. And to add on to this also, many people have said, well, how can you see the southern pole stars or Sigma Octantis, that constellation, at different times? All these people that are looking, whether they're in Australia, South America, or Africa, they say, how can they all look at the south and see the exact same thing at the same time? Well, first of all, they can't do that because the sunlight they're in different hours, they're in different areas of darkness, right? So as the stars are propagating around, when nighttime comes for each appropriate continent, whether it's Africa or South America or Australia or whatever, you're still going to see those rotational points. And the interesting thing about it is if you look on a planisphere, the stars that make up the constellation Sigma Octantis are actually 120 degrees apart. And a lot of people don't know that, but that's a real mind blower to figure that one out. So, and that's why some places you can't ever actually see the octan star. In fact, it's seldom ever seen, if ever. But, supposedly it's there, so we'll just go with that. So,
and those anti-crepuscular rays, that was another one on my list, is the fact that the flat earthers, I mean, did any of us ever hear of anti-crepuscular rays until flat earthers? And the fact that perspective does play a role with our celestial observations. I mean, that proves it without a doubt that there is a perspective concept that when we look up at the sky, perspective is playing a role. So like Bob said, then how can an equatorial mount work on a globe? It can't, because perspective should be playing a role there. And how is it accounting for perspective? It doesn't.
Exactly. And to answer the other ridiculous assertion, about who's making fun of her about the Antarctic ice wall, and people are going, well, yeah, show me a picture of the ice wall. It's like, for God's sakes, we've got a zillion pictures of them. I'm showing them to you right now. This is exactly what we're talking about. And this, Captain Cook and the other explorers that have gone down there describe this wall as going on as far as they can possibly see and navigate around, which happens to be around the 60 to 70,000 mile mark as far as a circumference. This is documented history, people.
How long did he take? And he never went below 60 south, right? there's a big difference between the climate in the 60 North, for instance, 60 South. I think 60 North corresponds to 45 South, climate-wise.
Yeah, they're very mismatched as far as the climate characteristics, for sure. And I think he was definitely further than 60 South, because where the Antarctic ice wall itself. Yeah, it's definitely further south than that. But the whole thing is when people go down there, that's one of the things they're in awe of. It's like, wow, these ice walls, thousands of feet high. And of course, Antarctica is also the highest continent, on average of any continent in the world. So where's the ice wall? You're looking at it, people. It's not like it's not there. It absolutely is. And to deny it and say there's no pictures of it, you're delusional, because there are. We're looking at them right now.
Yeah, and it's just the shore of Antarctica. And we've had to say it many, many times, because people do get this idea of there's like an ice wall with nothing beyond it, and nobody can ever move beyond it, Game of Thrones or something. No, it's just the shoreline of Antarctica. It holds in the water. And once you go too far inland, I'm sure it gets too cold and too hard to travel. But we wouldn't know. We're not allowed to go there.
Yep, exactly. But, like I said, the people that have been allowed to go there have gotten footage like this. So this is pretty telling, guys. So, all right, so let's go back to this and continue on. Here we go.
During the equinox, the sun rises due east and sets due west everywhere on the planet except at the poles. How could this be possible with your orange and plate theory? Sundials wouldn't even work, which would have been bad for people before we started using timepieces.
Okay, again,
Sundials, fine.
Yeah, sundials work fine, and again, the sundials have that same thing. When the light from the atmosphere, which is of course lensed, into this perspective dome, is hitting the sundial, then they work absolutely perfectly, no matter where you are. And what was the other thing that he said that I wanted to object to? I forgot.
But it's interesting too, Bob, that of course sundials are made by people who did not believe on a spinning ball. Like the Vedic, remember the one that you mentioned, the one from India, that's perfect to the minute, and it's all around the temple.
Yeah, exactly. And again, we know that this flat Earth delusion, this flat Earth psyop, baller psyop that is going on, has not come about but in the last 100 years or so. And you've got things like the Antikythera device, you have things like planispheres that have navigated successfully sailors all over the world for millennia. Come on, guys. That's the thing that is so amazing that people can't see this. Now, as far as this whole the sun sets and rises everywhere on the Earth, directly to the east and directly to the west on the equinoxes. Jaron showed something that is mind-boggling on Google Earth. And Jaron, do you want to show that again, or the Google Earth thing?
Talk about the east-west being.
Yeah, I do. I think that's important. I think a lot of people don't realize that, because when you first showed that just melted my brain. I'm like, oh my God, that answers so much. So yeah, if you want to bring that up and screen share, we will flip it over to you and let you kind of go through that.
And while Jaron's pulling that up, guys, I've done star trails. If everything goes over this curvature of the Earth, why don't stars intersect the marine horizon? They fade off into the distance above the horizon. And Globers will say, oh, well, that's the atmosphere. Okay, well, then how come that doesn't apply to your ISS, which is seen bright from horizon to horizon? So it's just more double speaklish from the globe community.
Yep, absolutely true. So, anytime you're ready, Jaron, with your... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the star trails should also be scrambling, right? According to their model, like they should never be perfect circles, with the expanding universe and the other speeds and everything else. And nobody's ever been able to model that. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay, Jaron, you're sharing. And you are presenting, sir. Except you're muted. Oh, Jaron, you're muted.
Sorry, now I'm back.
There you go.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Can you see this white box or no?
Yep.
Yep, we do.
It doesn't show when I'm doing OBS, but I guess it'll show now. So really just what I think was so shocking to me is if you go to anywhere, let's say here to the Monterey Bay, and you draw a line which would be 90 degrees east. Let's just go for 2,000 miles or so. So we're going to go to 90 degrees east, which coincidentally points almost directly at the equator there. Okay, so that line we know is 90 degrees east of this person. So if this person's standing here looking 90 degrees, they're looking here. So what you would then assume is that somebody standing here, west, where would west be for them? It should be here, right? And yet west, if you go to 270, would be down here at also 2,000 miles. So when you start realizing that the east and west aren't even the same for each person, and then really if you draw a line, let's say we draw a line at the this line here, and we just draw a line from here, and each of these people so-called see the sun rise at 90 degrees east, they say. So if you take a line from each of these spots and draw it at 90 degrees east, well, 90 degrees east to all these people is directly to the equator. So if you draw 90 degrees east to here, there, that's 90 degree up, 89, there, 90. So all of a sudden it just makes, you can start drawing lines from anywhere on this line and everybody's looking in the same direction when you go. So you can even just draw it to the equator right here and you'll know that you're close to, well, let's see here, where are we at? 90 there. So you'll see that everybody is actually looking basically in the same direction. Even if you go down here and show somebody looking 90 degrees here, again, oh, sorry, the equator's down here. I was thinking this was the equator. So this line would continue down to the equator. Obviously, if you started one here and drew it 90 degrees, it'd be the same thing. So 90 is about there. Again, it goes right to the equator. And actually, you can continue any of these lines. If you continued this line, so for instance, if I grabbed it here, oops, clear that one, grabbed it here and take it 90 degrees, it's going to end up on the equator. So stay right on that line and you'll see 90 degrees points directly to the equator. So east for everybody is not at all what we've been taught. If you ask somebody, oh, what's east of New York? They think it's over here, right? But if you take a line from New York and go 90 degrees east, you're going to end up down here. Let's see, 90 is there.
Yeah, and then show the converse, the flip side of that also, Jaron. Mm-hmm. If we go down to like one of the next major latitude lines and then go back west, and again, you would think that 270 would be, again, right back at the same direction, right? Right,
and 270 would actually be up here near the equator.
Again, yeah, so, exactly. Right. So that is exactly why that happens. Of course, when everybody's looking at really towards the equator and not true east or west, and that's right. Actually what's happening. It's a no-brainer. And this is
not one of the poles, because of course, if you go to the pole and you try and draw it 90, you're going to get a little bit confused because where do you go from here? But even just a little bit south of there, so say we go here and we say, sorry, where is 90 degrees from here? Well, it's going to be again way down here.
What would it be? What is the angle to draw a line that corresponds to their latitude lines?
Well, there is no line like that. You mean the line of latitude here?
The ones they have.
Well, they're not going to let you draw a line that direction. There is no line that, if I draw a line from here to here, you'll see it arcs right. This way. It's not going to let you. It won't even let you draw that line. Now, again, the problem with this is where people get confused is if we know this direction is towards 90 and this direction is towards 90, still, if you zoom in and you get real down to the nitty gritty, you'll notice that this line is almost identical to that line, right? There would be you couldn't even see that far. From here to here, that's already 30 miles. So how are you going to ever notice that you're not looking in the direction you think? Whereas this line, if continued on, would go all the way towards the equator.
But is it true that if you go 90 degrees, but then in small increments, then you have a different result?
Well, that's why east and west are circles. Because if you were to go 90 degrees, say we went 90 right here, okay, right to 90, and then you stop and save that line, and then go again, and you go 90, oops, here we go, and you keep going 90 again. Well, yeah, you'll just circle the Earth.
So it's different than
right. You're constantly correcting. In other words, with respect to north, you are constantly correcting that vector, and people do not understand that.
No, the only thing that stays true is north and south, and that is explained perfectly on a flat Earth map.
Yeah.
Right. North is always at the North Pole. South is always directly behind north. So no matter where you go on this globe, if you point directly north, which would be here at 360, a little to the right, right? Well, then obviously, if you're saying, okay, well, that person's north of me, well, then yes, it is true that that person who stands here, if they look south, look in the exact direction back. It's an identical 180. So that's explained perfectly on a flat Earth map, that north is always north of south and south is always south of north. It's a straight line. But east and west are circles, not north and south. North and south are cardinal directions, or actually north is, the cardinal direction, with south being the complete opposite. But east and west are not. And again, the easiest way to describe that is if you take a certain length of stick, let's say you're at the North Pole and you tied a string to, how far is this? Let's go 1,000 miles. Okay, so right there I'm at 1,000 miles, right? Well, to stay that 1,000 miles, you make a circle. So a lot of people, you just have to go east. No, if you stayed directly east, you would go, let's say we were 1,000 miles out again here. And if you were to go directly east from that point, let me save that. Again, it's going to take you down which way? This way. So if you go 90 degrees off that point, then it ends up over here. We'll see where 90 is this way. 90, which again will always take you towards the equator. So that's actually east from that point. So if somebody says, oh, well, I can just get in a plane and travel east, and well, if you get in a plane from here and you travel east, you won't come back around. You'll just go this way, south. And that's why any straight line is south. A straight line from anywhere on Earth will be south, other than if you're going directly north, obviously. But again, even if you go directly north, what happens when you cross the North Pole? Well, you're going south. So really, a straight line is in any direction eventually going to take you south. So that's basically it. But I mean, that was a big thing for me, is just learning. I mean, I would always think that if somebody's directly east of me, I'm directly west of them. But it's not the case. Why? Well, because east and west are circles and don't go the direction you think they are. The only way you can say that you know where somebody is, if somebody is directly north of you, you are directly south of them.
David is strolling here with circumnavigation for dummies.
Yeah, that's actually a good thing to play, I think.
Yeah. Go ahead and take that over, Bob. I think I've...
All right. That sounds good. Now, guys, that was some serious gravy. When the first time Jaron ever presented that, I about fell out of my chair. I mean, I'm just like, holy Toledo. That's just mind-boggling. So, yeah, kudos on that, Jaron. That was just freaking brilliant.
Thank you.
All right, and let's see. Let me get my screen to the right place for you guys. There we go. All right, everybody should be seeing that. And let me go ahead and let me bring this up that David linked. And this is only a 2-minute video, so let's go ahead and play this to give you a perspective, a difference in perspective between the ball Earth model and the flat Earth model for those globers out there that are watching. So flat Earthers, just be patient with us. Again, we're trying to convert some of the globers, and they're watching. I guarantee it. So here we go. Let's take a listen to David's video.
Here's our flat Earth with our magnetic center. This is the shoreline that we call Antarctica that surrounds our world. And here's my boat. I put my boat down and immediately the compass points north. If I want to circumnavigate, I want to head west or east, but we're going to go west right now. So I'm heading west, and as you see, west keeps turning. So I have to keep going, and this is how, when you go west, you end up going all the way back to where you started from. Same thing for east. I go east. I keep having to turn because my compass keeps making me turn to go east. If I want to go dead reckon west, so this would be dead reckoning west. If you watch the compass, I'm no longer going west, I'm going south. Any straight line on the flat Earth will eventually become south. And that is how you circumnavigate on the flat Earth. Nobody can circumnavigate south, because when you go south, you keep on going. Go north, and as I pass North Pole, I'm now going south, even though I'm going in the same straight line.
And what that kind of epic music is must be right. Right? I mean, how can David be wrong with that music, man?
That's right. David's spot on with it.
Right.
And thank you for
And
that,
this
David.
this has been on for a while, right? 2018.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
he's
I
had
use
this out
it
for a
all
long
the
time.
time. Yeah, and in all my radio shows, I showed this video. And I never gonna pay a penny to David, but I still use it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's continue on with the last 7 minutes of this, and find what else we can find that's just wrong. Oh, go ahead.
Iru, you should invoice David actually for talking about his videos on all those. You should invoice him.
Okay. We're gonna talk face to face with David. That is how you need to, lead with David, face to face.
That's right.
Sorry, Bob. Didn't mean to interrupt you,
No.
brother. Go ahead.
There's a super
worries,
chat on the coffee cup caustic.
Oh yes, that's another thing that's brilliant. Is the coffee cup caustic? And thank you, God, a foldness. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He says, is the coffee cup caustic the only way 17 to 18-hour days are possible in South America? Unlike Antarctica, anyone can go there. I don't know about South America, but clearly Antarctica, because remember, South America is a finite point, whereas Antarctica goes all the way around. And so when we're talking about the coffee cup caustic, we're talking about a point source light that the light is propagating around that outside firmament, if you will, that is providing a 24-hour day light to Antarctica, whatever part of it you happen to be on. And, I don't think any flat earther is disputing that there's a 24-hour day light. And I believe personally that it is because of that coffee cup caustic. But one thing we're certain of is there is absolutely not a 24-hour sunlight like there is on the North Pole. You have anything more on that, Jaron?
What about Iru? You live, because Iru is from Argentina. And that is
but I am very far away to test that, man.
so-
You need to go to Antarctica. If you want to test that, you need to go to Antarctica.
Antarctica.
It
But
cannot be
what about
measured
Patagonia?
in the continent.
What about
No,
Patagonia?
you are
Very
still
south.
you are still thousands of kilometers away.
Mhm. What is the latitude there in the Patagonia, like the very bottom?
Before 60. You are in the 60, 62, 58. The Georgia Island is at 58. And in the Georgia Island, even the penguins live there. I mean, no, it's you need to be into Antarctica if you want to test that.
Penguins live there.
Yep.
You bust sometimes, man.
Yes, I get in love on one of those.
Is it the only explanation for it? It's an interesting question, but it certainly is a good explanation. And whether or not it's an atmosphere that it's propagating through, or whether it's an actual dome, which many people assert and think. Either way, I think it describes light traveling around the outside of something in a unique way. So yeah, I have heard a lot of people always bring up the 17, 18-hour days in the south, and I think it does explain it quite well.
Yeah, and remember that the snow is high reflective material. So, all the daylight and things like that, you're going to also include a lot of the ground phenomena caused by the snow itself. And we have so many, and that is my opinion, right? But we have so many behavior with the light itself. And when you're trying to measure that kind of thing, you need to go really trying to get the most close to the outside of the atmosphere. It doesn't. You cannot prove or disprove anything just for ground-based observation. You need to go really high and trying to avoid the atmospheric refraction and intervention of the gases and things like that. Because if not, you are still having just ground observation, and that is not enough to declare something.
Yep. And Jaron, we used to have a tool. And I have the link somewhere. I just don't have it handy. But basically, there's a little tool, a little app that's really cool that you can take like a picture like this and take a point source light and move it around, and it will show you exactly how it propagates. And the interesting thing is when you take that point source light and you move it around, like it would go in and out and up and down on a flat Earth, you get these light patterns that encompass the entire so-called South American, not continent, but ring. So amazing.
Let me see if I can find it. I'm the same way. I've done videos on it, and maybe somebody in the chat remembers the exact site. I don't remember the exact site. I'll have to find it. I've got a lot of little bookmarks that I'll have to search through forever, but maybe I can drum it.
I remember that app, and it was really amazing. I also downloaded.
Oh, I just found it.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Did you not make your own animation, your own simulation of this, with that kind of dome?
The problem is it's impossible to. For me, this is just my opinion, okay? But I mean, it's impossible to get really realistic simulation in the way of nature does. I mean, you can fake it. I mean, for example, when NVIDIA make a video debunks the moon landing hoax, because they start putting all kind of algorithm to say, no, now we can prove that the astronaut behind the LEM is illuminated because the surface of the moon is reflecting the light, and also the own suit of the astronaut reflecting light too. But they are not simulating that conditions. They are faking it in the most precisely way, supposedly by them opinion, and by them creating algorithms and things like that. So, for example, when I show the that word is turning crazy, but the anisotropic behavior of the light that is computing by Arnold render engine, or Maxwell engine render, or all these render engine that engines that are out there. It's not technically precise. It's give you the optical and the visual behavior of the light, but the computer itself is very poor in terms of how nature does, and so it's impossible to recreate something like that. And at least for me, my technical skills, I am not able to do with real simulation. I can present you a visual simulation that it's like a real photo, real video when you are down there in Antarctica. But that doesn't mean there is a real simulation based on all the super quintillions of conditions that nature has.
Yep. Okay, cool. And thank you for that, Karen B. We now have two apps, and that the one that Karen B posted was actually much more elaborate than the very simple one. Yeah, that one was awesome.
It's a little bit different than the one I used to use, but that is exactly the site. So thank you very much. Yeah, Karen. Sorry about that. Could have been other letters there, right, Karen? It would have been a little different thing. But anyway, I'll play with this a little bit maybe on Friday's show or something once I remember how to use it to add atmosphere and different things. It's amazing the ray tracing and things you can do with this. So anyway, thank you, Karen, very much.
Yep,
for always being.
Yep, and it will be in the show notes afterwards, guys, so never fear. And I also just posted it in both the DLive and the YouTube chats. All right, so let's continue on. Here we go.
Poles. How could this be possible with your orange and plate theory? Sundials wouldn't even work, which would have been bad for people before we started using timepieces. Okay, please continue. You were also saying something about a massive ice wall? Allow me to retort, she said. She's a big Quentin Tarantino fan. What lies beyond the wall is the greatest mystery to us all. We simply can't get over it, and it probably protects us from something insidious. This wall holds in the oceans, and it keeps us from knowing what's beyond. In fact,
no flat earther believes that there's a wall that we can't get over. So his mother doesn't believe that. The made-up person of his mother doesn't believe it. It's just some nonsense that you can find on stupid sites. That's it.
Yep. That use the Flat Earth International Conference on a boat called the Pancake.
Right.
It's like lame guys. Lame guys. Oh, there you go. Hey, you strike us, we'll hit you back with a copyright claim for using our logo.
In fact, this year we plan to sail to the wall in what will be one of the boats. He's acting like his mother said this. That we plan to go ahead. You can play it from here.
I know it's absurd. Here we go.
Absurd.
This year we plan to sail to the wall in what will be one of the boldest missions humankind has ever undertaken. Okay, so who is going to be on that great voyage? I asked her. She told me it's headed by Flat Earth International, a group she is now a card-carrying member of. Mom, I intoned, I'm very.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
Let me check the records. Give me the name, and I'm gonna check in the list.
Double check here, make sure.
Double check, yes, double check.
Who's taking care of that again? Who's taking care of that part of the booking?
I gotta talk to Robbie though, because I'm pretty pissed. I've spoken at all the conferences and I am yet a card carrying member. This is ridiculous.
I never got a card. I feel ripped off.
I want 2 cards.
That's right, and a coin. Oh, I got a coin. All right.
I did get a coin. If she said she's a coin carrying member, then I would believe it.
All right, here we go, guys.
Very surprised that there's this giant wall of ice around the world, and so far no one, and I mean no one, has ever photographed it. She replied that we have seen great walls of ice.
Yeah, no one has ever photographed it, and I just showed you a crap ton of photographs of it. So again, these guys are so wrong. It just defies imagination.
No one photographed a neutrino and graviton and photon.
Don't need to do that. It's points of energy.
Yeah, point of energy, black holes, whatever, man.
Dave Weiss says he has a card.
Yeah, how did him and Paige get a card? All right, now I'm pissed.
Prove it, Dave. I want to see a photograph of the card. There's no photographs of such card.
Yeah, he'll make one. You watch.
Nor is there any cruise going to Antarctica. This is something that was made up by the internet media. And again, search that Flat Earth cruise, and you'll see all over the place. Flat Earthers plan to go to the ice wall, plan to do. It's never even a thing.
Yep, that came from an Australian press agency.
Right.
No, apart from what's his name, Meth Powerland, right?
Well, maybe, but sometimes when you're on the inside, you get to see all this, and it just it makes me sad to know that there's people on the outside that don't know that these things are fabrications. It takes being on the inside to be like, wait, there's no such thing. Wait,
it's everywhere in the international media, all over the world.
Yeah, it's everywhere. You can find articles on all the time that talk about it.
Yep. All right, let's continue.
And that the rest of the border is made up of mountain ranges. That's why we can't just fall off the edge of the world. But why haven't the planes seen this edge? I asked her. She then went on about something called the Pac-Man effect, and like in the game, when a plane reaches the edge, it just teleports to the other side. She admitted.
Did not say that.
Oh my God.
Like photons, the photons and the gravitons teleport to. They are connected. There are entanglement connections between the atoms. So.
They send them back in time as well. They teleport them back in time.
Yeah, I mean that theory is so ridiculous. And honestly, I have to say there are some very prominent flat earthers that I even respect. Honestly, they have really great research as far as I'm concerned up to that point. When they have come to the Pac-Man theory, I'm sorry, but I can't go there. I just can't. But
not when you can stand at the North Pole and watch the sun go around you.
Exactly.
And Diana Lima and things like that.
Yeah.
That made me think, Bob, are the real Globebusters still in effect?
That's exactly what I was thinking of. I don't know. I haven't heard from those two clowns in a long time.
It's been a year since I've heard anything. Well, I'm sure the real Globebusters is going strong somewhere else.
Oh,
the real
Globebusters.
Nice
remembers.
You remember them?
Yeah, man. I forget that. So thank you, Jeran, for bringing that again to my mind.
Bob brought it up. I didn't even think about them, but now that I'm remembering, and they moved in with each other, which maybe made them the real Globebusters. We haven't moved in with each other yet, so
that would make them Ballbusters, wouldn't it? I did not just say that. Let's continue.
Admitted that this was only a current theory and not the truth like everything else she'd said. This was now new territory, and those men in white coats were suddenly becoming quite real to me. And what about gravity? I asked her. To which point she said the whole thing is a hoax. Things just fall. She dropped that orange to prove her point, and amid my utter astonishment at her simplicity and undermining years of science, I wondered why on earth she ever sent me to school. She said under this flat earth there are magnets and they pull the oceans and change sea level. Maybe we should talk about the stars, I said.
Nobody ever said under this flat earth. No,
Yeah.
I've never heard a flat earther say under this flat earth. Why? Because it's a non sequitur. It doesn't even follow. The earth is all that there is. It's not a disk in space. It's not a flying pancake. It's not next to Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, and then there's the flat disk, and it's not infinitely smaller than the sun. Nobody believes that. So again, this person, whoever makes this channel, I'd be weary of watching any of the other videos because I'm sure they're just fabrications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're
Who said there's magnets under the earth too? I've
Nobody.
been running a flat earth group for 5 years, guys. We got 127,000 members. I've never heard anyone say there's giant magnets under the flat earth, dude. So
Yeah, but the most beautiful thing is when they say they use giant for everything. For example, they say, well, if I have a super giant telescope, can I see from New York to Portugal?
Right.
If I have this giant balloon, if I have this giant, and well, they assuming that we have giant magnets. It's correct, man.
Yeah, and he says that here in a second about seeing forever. And it's like the people have never thought anything. Anybody who continues to say that or thinks that has just never used their head. Oh, well, why can't we see forever if we have a telescope? Well, there's something called atmosphere, and it blocks what you can see.
You need a giant telescope, no a telescope.
So,
Giant
Ben,
telescope.
Ben, that's something you have to add to your list, Ben, is in outer space, if it weren't for flat earthers, in outer space, we would never have known that angular size never diminishes.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
All right, let's continue.
I told her that if we were on a flat Earth, we'd all see the same constellations in the night sky. In real life, if you were at a certain latitude, you might see the Big Dipper, but if you were at another latitude, it wouldn't be visible. How's that possible? Going back to ancient times, astronomers...
Do we all see the same planes in the sky, folks? Or do we see different planes? The planes in my sky are certainly not the planes in Bob's sky. Okay, because there's a little thing called perspective and distance, and the fact that I can see the planes that are close near me within, whatever the radius of my sight is in the sky, maybe a few, 50 miles, something like that. And Bob can see the flights that are around his area, and Eru can see the flights above his area. We don't all see the same thing in the sky. So it's not on a flat Earth. We would all see the same. I don't not see the flights above Bob's land because it's a curved Earth, because I can't see the flights above cities near me.
Yeah, they seem to be going with the first, when the first wave of flat Earth videos started coming out, there was the first kind of debunk was about the sun being always visible if you were flat. They're still going with this. It's like 5 years ago.
They're not learning anything, going anywhere. They've just begun. Yeah.
They're still using the same fallacy that I pointed out, 3 years ago, of why do we get sucked into using the ball Earth cosmology against the flat Earth argument. The stars are close and local. This is why we don't all see the same skies. I mean, that should be apparent, but again, they just obfuscate this stuff. So let's continue.
Yeah, and you can see that they just set up 10 straw man arguments to beat on. That's all they've done here. It's just set up a whole bunch of straw man arguments.
Because of lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Or they're doing it on purpose. I mean, it's probably both.
Man, but let's give him some credit. He invented the story with his mother. At least nobody presented in that way. Okay,
sold his mother.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It's brilliant. It'd be like David doing a video where he said, "I went and talked to this 102-year-old person and then just used cartoons to draw."
Exactly. Right.
Exactly. The conversation with this person. I could make a video tomorrow where here's my conversation with a 185-year-old man and draw some cartoons and tell you all about what that 185-year-old man said.
That's right. Well, you did that when you drove to Hawaii, right? And you were also on the roof of the White House, right? Remember that video?
Oh my God, you're going way back.
Way back, yeah. And people were going, I can't believe Jaron wants us to believe that he was actually on the roof of the White House.
My cartoon. Oh boy.
That was crazy.
who thought that I was is Jaron really feeling the effects of the coronavirus from my video the other day? It's like
With the mask on.
Oh man, people can be so gullible and dumb sometimes. It's scary. It really is. All right, let's continue.
Changes in the constellations, and they knew the Earth couldn't be flat. How do people on different sides of the world see different night skies? She told me when we travel, we simply have a different perspective, so that when we travel away from things, they can become smaller and then they just disappear. But they are still there. That's why we can see certain stars in certain places. She said there's a vanishing point for stars just like anything else we observe at a distance. Mom, I said, I admit that I don't quite understand that in this context, but I'll just say that astronomers will tell you that certain constellations appear in the night sky at certain locations. Your vanishing point theory doesn't exactly convince me. And let's talk about the horizon. When we see things like ships float out to sea, they get farther away and appear to sink. We see less of the ship. Let's say the water was very calm. If the Earth was flat, we'd see that ship go out for a long way, and then it would disappear over.
Yeah, it's like, do we even have to address this one? It's just stupid. This is just stupid, period. Let's continue.
Yeah, and what we observe is exactly what we see on the right side, what he's showing. Yeah, if it were flat, it should look like this. Yeah, well, that's how it looks.
We actually see it go out and then start to appear to basically float. Why? Because it's even on water further than the water that we can see, as we showed on Friday's show.
Yeah, exactly. And the Black Swan and 50 billion other videos that just devastate this stupid argument that they keep using all the time. It just kills me. It slays me. Let's continue.
Then let's say we used an instrument to magnify that object and we might see it, but see it seeming to sink. At some point it'll disappear, never mind what instrument we're using because of the curvature of the Earth. If this place were flat, with a good enough telescope we should be able to see everything in front of us. But we cannot. Explain that, dearest mother.
Yeah, angular resolution. These are things that there's a reason why they don't teach this in school. You know, to keep keep people dumb and ignorant of these facts. There is such a thing as angular resolution. There is such a thing as angular size. We don't see things in side vision or Muppet vision or whatever it's called. There's so many things that they don't ever explain, and again, they use stupid arguments like, well, if the world is flat, we could see all the way, across to Europe and stuff like that. Again, completely omitting the argument of angular size or anything like that.
Or atmospheric blockage. I mean, you can't see forever. I mean, I love the description of somebody standing reading a train schedule at a foggy train station. And you would only be able to see your own schedule. You wouldn't even see people around you. But each of the other people would also be able to see their own train schedule, and they wouldn't be able to see further than their own personal view. Well, you just expand that a little bit. And another way to describe it is like panes of glass. That you could put 10 panes of glass in front of somebody's face and they can still see. And you can put 100 and they'll probably still be able to see, and 1,000. But once you get out to a certain amount of panes of glass, you're going to be able to stop seeing. And it's just the way it works. We can't see very far. Some days you can see forever. I mean, I can go out in front of my house. I've described it a lot of times. In the east are the mountains that separate California and Nevada, the Sierra Nevadas. You can see, the ones of Yosemite and stuff like that. Well, on most days I go out and I can't see those mountains. Well, it's not like, if I had the best telescope in the world, I should be able to see those mountains. No, no telescope is going to help me see through the atmosphere. Maybe an infrared camera will help me see a little bit of an outline of those mountains, but that's about it. And then there's some days during the winter when the air is really crisp that I can see those mountains plain as day. They're right over there. I can see the snow on top of them. I can see Half Dome. That's all right there to my east. But on most days, if I go out there today, I will see no mountains. Not because the Earth is curved, not because they're too small, simply because the atmosphere is between me and those mountains. And it's dense today.
And in fact, we are talking because we have been programmed. We did this idea that the telescope are super advanced technology machines.
Well,
and in fact, we don't even use an IR filter on the telescope to see more in the long distance. We have discovered that with IR and thermal cameras or things like that, will be a really nice upgrade to this super fancy technology, which is 2 glasses in a tube.
Right. And a mirror. Right.
And a mirror in this case, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Just people need, and I'm sure people all have this at their own places, that you can sometimes see distant mountains and sometimes you can't. And, maybe it's hard to know because if you don't have mountains around you, maybe you're driving and you see some mountains off in the distance. You're like, oh, I bet you can see those every day. And it's not the case. Sometimes the atmosphere between you and those distant objects gets in the way. And when you start talking about further distances, again, even at 50 miles, think of how tiny the buildings are of like New York. I don't know if you've ever seen images. There's images all over the internet of certain places you can stand in areas and you can look at the skyline of New York from 50 miles away. And the buildings are little itty bitty tiny. And so you go beyond that 100 miles. Well, now you cannot see any of those buildings. Why? Because they're too small. And everything around us is like that. It's just crazy that they have to keep bringing that up. Anyway, go ahead, Bob.
Yep, here we go.
Look, son, it's all about perspective and light refraction. The object is not going over the horizon, you just think it is. Weird, I said, since it's been scientifically proven. She had one word for that. Liars. Okay.
Scientifically proven?
And then look at the picture they put up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's look how pretty the universe is. Oh,
science.
A spinning space monkey. I came from monkeys, and oh boy.
Saturn is closer to the sun than the Earth now.
It is today.
What
wow.
Artwork. Look at the Oort cloud out there. Oh, it's wonderful. So pretty.
Science.
So why, if other objects in space are obviously not flat, how come we live on a flat object? Hope you have a reasonable answer to that one. There is no reason, my child. Just look around you. That TV is rectangular, but the clock is round. The Earth is just different, just as all things have certain shapes. Well, Mom, I admire your deductive.
Yeah, and as far as that stupid argument about why are all the other planets round, they're not. Again, when you look through a telescope, in order to see something in 3D, three-dimensional, to be able to perceive it as a sphere, you must be able to see it in binocular vision. You have to have two eyes, stereoscopic or binocular vision. Otherwise, all you're seeing is a circle, and your brain, because of your indoctrination and your brainwashing, is telling you that it's a sphere because you believe it is, not because you're seeing a ball, simply because you've been told that and you believe it. End of story. Let's continue.
And then you need to go and check it.
And then you need to go on what?
And check it.
Yes, absolutely.
Outlanding on snowman asteroids.
Yep.
First square bird swim through a desert of marshmallow sand. Because
Stupid argument.
there are no rules in this universe. Sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, she replied angrily. But the highest form of intelligence, I quipped, quoting Oscar Wilde. I then told her something else. I brought up a flight from Sydney to Santiago, Chile. This 7,000-mile flight takes roughly 12 hours. If the Earth were flat, it would take much, much longer. You can actually go online and track this flight. Is everyone lying about the flight time on a...
No, it's just you lying about being able to track it. You cannot.
And look at the path. Look at the path he drew, going the complete opposite direction of the way the path. Nobody ever take. That's not the flight direction. It's not even. We did it the opposite way. Oh boy.
Exactly. And the other thing that you want to see, of course, is this. If we go wind and we look at this on the flat Earth map and we look at some of these velocities, 36 meters per second. You have some pretty extreme velocities, and actually, I don't like this particular scale. Maybe we can change that.
Well, you should go to 250 HPA.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was at ground level. My bad. So let's go to 250, and let's look at some of these.
Can you click meters per second to get it to change? I know in the other. No, at the top where it says 40 meters per second, you might be able to click. There you go.
There
click
we go.
It.
There we go. Excellent. Okay. So yeah, different velocities, and these actually are very, very low today, and maybe it's because of the scale that I'm at, but there are times when the winds aloft go above 200 miles an hour, and it is not uncommon for them to go to 300 miles per hour. And when that happens, you can take advantage of these as a tailwind, and that will add on to your 550 mile an hour typical cruise, add on another 300 miles per hour, and all of a sudden that Sydney to Santiago run is not so preposterous. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just something that people really need to know.
I just want to add on that one. Since Max Egan, I mean, I have my doubts about it. I think it might be worth an idea for one of us to go ahead and try to take that flight one of these days to try to raise up enough money to go ahead and take that flight, because I'm starting to doubt whether that one exists. That's just me. I'm a little paranoid, I guess, but I have my doubts.
Yeah, or it could
I
be.
think it's funny the Globers are talking about one flight. The Federal Airline Administration trains pilots on a flat, stationary Earth. So what's this one flight that people are taking on a globe? It's like every other flight is done on a flat, stationary Earth. So it's just a joke.
Yeah.
And also, oh, sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But wait a second.
Oops. Okay. You wanted me to wait a second.
Sorry. Yes, I heard from Douglas Falk that there was a flight from New York to London last week that broke a record because he went like 4.5 hours, I think, New York to London because of a wind. And that's going...
I saw that same article. It says 800. Yeah, again, it's always going east because that's the way the trade winds go. At the flight height that most of those planes fly between 33 and 40,000 feet, and I said it went some 850 miles per hour, which is, and then you have to remember that the southern winds are faster than the north winds. So if a plane in the north is able to go 850, then a plane in the south is probably able to go 950. And if you
didn't you check when you're checking? I remember when you're doing a live check on that flight. You're checking for the speeds, and sometimes the speeds are like clocking 1,000 or something like that. They're very anomalous.
On that site, yeah, and it gets a little bit confusing because it has different speeds, right? Ground speed, and everybody always gave me a hard time about not understanding the difference between ground speed, air speed, but we pretty much get it, and the ground speed is based off of the distance that GPS says the ground is, which is if that's off, then you don't even know what the ground speed is.
And believe me, Jaron, you know what ground speed is. I can attest to that.
Thank you.
It's not like it's a tough one, and you definitely know what it is. And if they say that you don't, then they don't know what ground speed is.
No, well, because they'll start arguing and say, yeah, but the ground distance, is only said, so the ground speed is this. You don't understand ground speed. Well, of course, if you're using the map that we've been given to calculate all your distances, well, then the ground speed is going to be correct because that's what speed is, right? Distance over time. So if the distance is wrong, then the distance, then everything gets blown up from there, which is what we're saying. The distance is off. Right. Yep.
And also, I think the undersea cables, they don't take those routes as well.
It's very crazy too. You would think that, or neither do cruises. So again, I still would love to find that because I think cruise ships pretty much have a max speed, and it might be 20 miles per hour. Maybe they can get up to 22, 24. But it's not quite like a plane where somebody could say, oh, well, Jaron, the max speed of a plane is 500 miles per hour. And I could explain how that plane could actually be traveling 900 miles per hour with the wind. Well, I don't think there's any ocean currents or any wind that's going to move a cruise ship from 20 miles per hour to 200 miles per hour, 250 miles per hour, which is what it would need to do to cross that bottom in the amount of time. But again, we don't see those cruises. Why? They have They try to explain it as, oh, well, nobody would want to take a cruise out there. It's dangerous. What happens if something happens? Where are they going to dock? Well, there's islands out there and stuff, but people love cruises because they love to eat, they love to gamble, and they love to drink. So believe me, people.
Yeah, there's one guy, this guy Thor Heyerdahl, that supposedly with a raft went from Chile to Easter Island to try to prove that people could actually navigate from Easter Island to Chile.
In a raft?
Yeah, this guy, it's called Kontiki, Kontiki. There's a film, I think, about it as well, but he has a book, and he's like Icelandic, I guess, anthropologist, but he's sort of like a Graham Hancock style, like he's not taken seriously by a lot of mainstream, but because he found connections between Mayans and people in Africa and Mauritania, the same kinds of structures and stuff, and mainstream doesn't like those kinds of, the narrative doesn't fit the narrative. So, yeah. But then he tried to prove that you could actually navigate with a simple raft from those distances all the way to Easter Island. But so it
seems to be going in the wrong direction for what a raft would have to be doing, but I could be wrong. Every so-called attempt to circumnavigate the Earth always seems to go to the east because that's the way the current goes. So it'd be pretty impressive to go the opposite way in a raft, but could be done. It's certainly not going to catch me trying it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's continue.
On a flat Earth map, you can measure the distance and calculate how long it would take. And it's been done, and it's far longer than if the world were a sphere. She just shook her head at that. Okay, she then said, so if the plane is flying around the Earth's curvature, then surely it wouldn't be horizontal all the time. So how come you take a spirit level on a plane and it shows it is horizontal most of the time? If you attach the world's smallest spirit level to the back of a housefly and told it to fly around a beach ball, that level would not read flat. Mom, that incredibly simplistic example has convinced me that we undoubtedly cannot share the same DNA. Let me just...
That's a nice thing to say to your mother, isn't it?
So bullshit. That example led me to believe that there's no way we can share the same DNA. It's just so stupid. This guy's wife sitting next to him with just a smile on her face. Everything's great.
Well, he shames his mother.
Say the Earth is not a beach ball and a plane is not a fly. I hope that's clear to you. She looked down at me like I was the idiot.
You are the idiot.
Told her that planes lift into the air with their wings and this enables them to fly, which I thought was pretty obvious. Once up in the sky, the pilot doesn't have to make many adjustments to stay at a certain altitude. He might adjust the plane when he wants to reduce altitude, but this is very incremental. It's the same thing when you're traveling down what looks like a long, straightish road. You might be moving to the left, but it's so slight, only a minor turning of the wheel over some period of time has to be done. Imagine a housefly flying over New York. Does it have to go down on a downward trajectory to get where it wants to go? Exactly, she screamed. That just proves my point. I had to sit down for a second and hold my head in my hands. It wasn't funny anymore. I was no longer having a good time. She was totally impervious to the most basic reasoning. Okay, let's get back to the absurd stuff, Mom, because that's at least amusing. And I'm talking about the Great Ice Wall that no man has ever breached.
Nobody
you
ever
have
said
to
that.
wonder why the plane
nobody ever said that.
Can't get over this wall because there are plenty of aerial photographs of Antarctica taken from planes. Well, she said, maybe you just don't want to show us what's out there, so no plane is allowed to go that far. If
There
it
you
did, it
go.
would pack man back like I already told you.
God.
But we will get to the edge of the world, and that's why we're going to sail there on the Great Flat Earth Expedition. Okay, and you know the ship...
I'm sorry, did you say pause?
I just said
lie.
lies.
Yeah, bullshit.
that they'll be sailing on will use navigational instruments that were designed on the scientific basis of the curvature of the Earth. Like if the Earth were flat...
Yeah, I want to know which scientific instrument anywhere ever has been based on designing it around the curvature of the Earth. Name one. Okay, I didn't think so. Let's continue.
Toilets.
Oh, damn. Okay, well, we got one.
Flat, you could just use 3 satellites and be on your way. But because it's spherical, you need satellites on the other side of the Earth. You do understand that, don't you? She scowled at me. But then that turned into a smug smile. Oh, you'll see. We'll get there and all you deniers will be in awe at what we've achieved. Wait a minute, I said, and I went into the kitchen. I came back and passed her a plastic cake knife that we never use. You might need this, I said. It's dragon glass. That's just a made-up story, she said. I know, I told her. Let that sink in. We think
Man has been pondering the existence of aliens for some time. Even in...
Okay, sorry about that.
I don't think I understood the end, but yeah, it's just me.
No, that for me too. I mean, that was all.
Wait,
That
was
was
he
it.
saying
That's it.
it was a made-up story? Maybe
Yeah,
I
he's
got-
trying to say that the whole flat Earth thing was just a made-up story. That was his point,
thought he was
supposedly.
admitting his story.
It was like a dream inside the dream, and when the movie ends, was everything a dream?
Inception.
Well,
Yeah,
no, it was
something like
the
that.
dragon glass is the kind of material
Dragon in
that
the sky. The
no, they can kill the zombies in the Game of Thrones, right? So
Oh,
you need to have that kind of material so you can hit them and they will die. So
it's so
he's-
bad. The story is so bad that anyone can add their own final. You know, their own ending. You know what I mean?
Terrible.
Nobody
And
understand it. I mean,
No, he jumped to some Greeks or whatever, talking about aliens. It's what he did. So it's basically that kind of stuff. The whole channel.
Yeah, it's pathetic. So anyway, that was it. That's what we wanted to go over and, show you how incredibly full of mistakes, straw men, ridiculous arguments, bullshit. Yeah, it's all Jaron's fault because he brought it to my attention. But yeah,
I suspect something like that because who gonna be so jerk to present this?
It's just me.
Yeah. Thank you, Jaron. You ruined my Sunday.
No, come on.
No.
So anyway, so that's it on that. Wow, It's just.
But I think it's another kind of shot in the foot, Bob. Like that, because you're just gonna go and see, any person. I hope, someone who's honest is gonna say, okay, let's see a flat earther say something, at least, instead of just going with some animation, and then they're gonna see that it's not exactly what they're saying.
Yeah.
Depending where they fall, depending where they end up. But yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, I have several other things, but I want to keep the show right at 3 hours today. So we will cover these next week. So we had a couple things I wanted to highlight, and I'll highlight them next week. Is the wireless broadband record. We're going to talk a little bit about Witsit versus McToon, which we kind of talked about it on the Friday Lounge. But congratulations, Austin! You wiped the floor with that clown and his 2.0 refraction. And then also, Globebusters made the Flat Earth Society wiki page. I'm not proud of that, but many of you may remember a year ago or better, I did an episode called Sunday Mass. And in that episode, I disclosed exactly where the Flat Earth Society got their model of gravity of a disk rising up at 9.8 meters per second squared. And it actually came from Einstein, from Globebusters, from Einstein. And that video was cited in their argument at the Flat Earth Society wiki. Like I said, not proud of it, but it's in there. And so there you have it. And I will put all this in the show links. Other nonsense: meteorite smashes into factory compound, leaving 20-foot crater in a celestial event. Bunch of horse manure. Human missions to Mars will use lasers to communicate with Earth, with NASA. Again, ridiculous. I'll go into that next week as to why.
Lasers.
Yeah, lasers. It's like, all you have to do is think about for 1 second what's going on with that. If you fired a laser, and it took, several minutes to get across, from Mars to Earth or whatever, and you're actually using a laser beam, you're going to completely miss your target. It's just preposterous, this whole, and I'll elaborate on this, next week, but this is just dumb that they would even say this. Another stupid, iconic pale blue dot revisited. Iconic view of Earth from 3.7 billion miles away. And of course, you can see the little dot of the Earth there, but nothing else but just the Earth. And there's nothing else there. The sun isn't there. You would think if the sun's only 93 million miles away, you'd be able to see it in there somewhere, right? But no, not there. Just more stupid stuff. Then more UFO stuff, mysterious radio signal from space repeating every 16 days, another nonsense. And this, my personal favorite: how did dinosaur parents know when their kids have a fever?
No way. That's trolling. That is.
I wish it was trolling, but it's not.
No, come on.
It's from Phys.org, no less, guys. Let's see. This one's really good, and I want to give this a little bit more time, but this will be in the show notes. Shout out to Roy at the Vinnie St. Vincent page, who basically has succeeded in creating a perpetual energy machine, and it's amazing the way that this works, and I want to go into this. Austin, I think you'll be particularly interested in this, and I'd like to actually get him on and talk about this, but this is really fabulous. And other than that, that's about all we had. So I'm going to go ahead and go around. One thing I do want to say is I know Jaron was going to shout out Jason and Crow, which are coming up next. Also, I wanted people to know that Ranty Flat Earth will be having Brandon Toy on for a presentation immediately following Globebusters. And one other thing I wanted to do was shout out a little girl by the name of Christabel. And Christabel is a 10-year-old flat earther who started a flat earth group in her 4th grade class. And because of that, NASA came in and gave her a free 2-week ticket to space camp. True story, guys. So shout out to you, Christabel.
Well, at least it's free ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
No with discount. No, the
free
50% discount. It's free, man.
Yep.
Wow.
So keep up the good work, Christabel. Don't let those guys brainwash you. You're doing a great job, and good luck to you and your 4th grade flat earth group. That's awesome. So, all right, cool. So I think, guys, unless anybody has anything else they want to address really quick, we'll go around one last time. Does anything have anything else they want to cover before we do that?
Yeah, I got the meetup in San Antonio next week, guys, on Saturday, 4 to 7. It's at Kunstler Brewing. Just hit me up if you need details. flatearthflyers@gmail.com. It's going to be a good turnout. A bunch of people have already RSVP'd. So if you're in San Antonio area, flatearthflyers@gmail.com. Thanks for giving me the platform to just make the promotion, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem. Where's it going to be at again, Nathan?
It's called Kunstler Brewing, and it was so funny, Bob. 5 minutes before the show started, I get a text, and it says, this is so funny. 1 second. So she said, hi, Nathan. My name's Crystal. I work with Kunstler in San Antonio. Unfortunately, we can't host your meetup. So the Globe Trolls have contacted Kunstler and said we're gonna have a Flat Earth meetup there. And I said, well, it's not an event. I'm just meeting some friends for a drink. Are you not open to the public? And she goes, according to the Facebook site, you're having a Flat Earth meetup, but if you're just coming to have some drinks with your friends, there's no problem. So we just don't schedule meetups on Saturday. I know. So the Glovers have already reached out to them and harassed them about how we're going to meet up there and talk about how the Earth is flat.
So sad.
I know. How sad.
That's pathetic.
No, man.
I got to say,
I can't believe in that.
Yeah, it's bad. I got to say, one time Nathan and I did a meetup here in Colorado, in Golden, Colorado, which is out towards the mountains, and it was also at a brewery. And that was the night, Nathan, that the Los Angeles, was it the LA Times that interviewed us that night?
The LA Times, and the title of the article was the round Earth debunked by the Flat Earth movement. And then in parentheses, it said, you read that right.
Awesome. Well, at least we didn't get kicked out for it, but man, that's crazy. All right, cool. So Nathan, I guess you've announced that. Is there anything else that you want to, announce about, the group, or anything like that? And I'll just start with you first and tell us what you got coming up other than that, or if you want to reiterate it, that's fine. So tell us some more stuff, Nathan.
Of course, yeah, guys. So I run the official Flat Earth and Globe discussion on Facebook. So if you're on there, what's kind of nice is you can add all your friends. So you can't add your friends to the Globebusters YouTube channel, but you can add them to the discussion. Hopefully they'll get in there, figure out where they live. I also make flyers available for people. So if you need any flyers, hit me up, flatearthflyers@gmail.com. And what else is also, I'm going to be at Sacred Word Publishing next month with Rob Skiba and Zen Garcia. And there's also some other great speakers. So at the end of the month in Atlanta, if you're in that area, check out Sacred Word Publishing. I got a discount code. It's Nathan10 if you heard about it from me. So you get a discount on your tickets and stuff. So I'll see you guys all there. Other than that, it's the San Antonio meetup next week. And that's all I have planned. And join the group. I'll see you guys all there.
Beautiful. Well, good luck at it. I hope everything goes well, and that's awesome. All right, cool. So let's move on then to Rodrigo. Rodrigo, what do you got coming up this week? I know you've been working on your the PDF, and I forgot the name of it. Anyway, tell us about it. Space Crack. That's right.
Magazine.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there's just a collection of thoughts and different issues, and I'm going to be talking about it in Jaren's channel Thursday, so that's coming up, and that should be quite interesting. Otherwise, I may decide to do another live before that if I have the time, and that's it essentially. And that I don't know if did you read it? Did you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't read the whole thing, but I have read a good portion of it. I find it quite fascinating.
Yeah, there's some stuff. Thank you. Yeah, some things are a bit tangential, but it's just a bunch of stuff that, about academia, I wanted to explain some of the things that happen and some of the thoughts. Of course, it's quite critical and of academia, and because it is for the best. I think, you always are critical. I think I'm only critical because I want to see things get better. Usually, whenever I'm making points that are critical, sometimes it may seem a little bit harsh. But I don't know. I want to do more of it, and there's a lot of themes that we can talk about. There's a lot of materials that can be put in that kind of format, and I enjoy doing it. And this is part of being here and being in the Friday Lounge is what has inspired me, put me on the track. And it's, we know very well how much information there is and what a need we have for even rewriting textbooks in terms of a paradigm shift on the long run. We're going to have to start doing this.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Boy, we're going to have to rewrite a lot of textbooks for sure. Okay. All right. So let's move on then to Iru. Iru, you are back in Argentina, safe and sound now. And what do you got going on down there, sir?
Well, I was, putting in order something, some stuff about my work, and then I'm gonna take this week to make some updates to my English channel. I hope David is not listening to this because he's going to just don't believe me. But no, that is why it's take me so much time sometimes to translate things in English, and I don't want to make a poor translation or when I speak left behind words or concepts. But I was in Europe and I take the time there to be with my girlfriend and enjoy another things from the real life. So I hope now I'm back here, I have the time to work on the English channel, and because my Spanish channel, I have it update all the time. I make maybe 1 or 2 presentations per week, but I feel a little bad for my English channel and all the people that support me via Patreon that are from the English community. So I'm start feeling a little bit bad about that with some kind of depth on my shoulder. So I'm going to try to upgrade my English channel. And of course, I am only left like 30 subscribers to reach 1,000 because I want to start make live videos, like I mentioned in the Sharanism channel, because it's more easy for me, skip the editing part. Sometimes that is very time consuming. So I hope you reach that and start making live hangouts.
Awesome. Okay, good. So mods, if you can get a link to Iru's English channel and kind of spam that in the chat, I will also put that in the show notes. Again, let's get Iru up to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm sure you probably won't have too much trouble making the 4,000 hours of watch time, and then you can do some live mobile live feeds, which will be awesome. So love to see that. All right, so next up, Ben. Tell us what's going on there on your neck of the woods and what you got coming up, sir.
Well, thanks again, everyone, for having me on. I just, I'm actually feeling pretty sick now, so I think my fever came back. So I'm going to go to sleep. That's all I have planned.
Okay, well, get feeling better. I certainly understand that, and I've had a few bouts myself, so hope you feel better. And I will be in touch with you, Ben, about some of the Globebusters Pro stuff. Now that I'm feeling a little bit better about things myself, and we will move forward with the Globebusters Pro interviews.
Awesome. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, cool. And last but certainly not least, Jaron, what do you got coming up?
Just all kinds of fun stuff. Dave Weiss will be joining Crow 777 and Jason Lindgren on the Secrets of Saturn podcast on that channel. So that's up right now, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. So head over there. If you've got nothing to do, I'm going to go check that out. And then, yeah, just Dave and Weiss. Dave and I are doing Monday Night Raw, obviously, tomorrow. And that will include a 10-minute follow-up call that Dave did with Ruth, where he's going to read her some comments. So that'll be fun for people to hear. And then Thursday, Rodrigo will be on doing a presentation on the Spacecraft magazine. Looking forward to that. Friday, we'll have another lounge. Of course, Globebusters as always. And like I said, also, there's a app video update of all the new features that'll be coming out in a few days, and that'll be on my channel as well as probably on Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. So lots of stuff coming up, lots to do. Appreciate everybody listening, and always, the super chats, everything's awesome from everybody, and appreciate the mods and appreciate the panel members. It's been fun.
All right, beautiful. Well, we appreciate you being here, and I can't believe we've been doing this for 5 years now. It's just amazing, and still going strong. All right, and thank you to the over 1,200 live viewers that we had today on DLive and YouTube. We definitely appreciate you, all the people that contributed super chats. You have no idea how much of that is appreciated. We definitely can use it for sure. And also know that Globebusters does have PayPal and Patreon links in the description if you want to become Patreon. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for Patreon supporters, but we just kind of got that started a couple months ago, and I just wanted to let you know that that is there in case you don't want to have YouTube take a third of your donations, which is something that they typically do. But other than that, I also wanted to point out to people, as you have probably noticed, that in the chat you will see Nightbot go by every so often with the notification that we have two 24/7 Flat Earth channels that run 24 hours a day, and one of them highlights the work specifically of Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, Jeranism, and Taboo Conspiracy, and the other one is Globebusters 2, is kind of a hodgepodge of everybody and everything, and I keep those updated as much as possible. So they are both excellent resources for people if you want to guide them someplace to, they could just sit back and kind of watch it. Really good resources for that. Other than that, that is about it for me. I will see you guys next week, and that's all we have from here. So again, thanks everybody for joining. Mods, thanks for keeping the chat a nice place to be. We love you all, and we'll see you next week. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.